order, and we'll start with introductions of the rest of the commissioners. Could we start with Vice Chair Hatfield-Hyde?
Good morning. I'm Becky Hatfield-Hyde, and this morning I am in Brothers, Oregon.
Thank you. Commissioner Labhart.
Good morning, Mark Labhart, and I'm a commissioner and I live in Sisters, but I'm zooming in from the ODFW office this morning.
Thank you. Commissioner Spellbrink.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Bob Spellbrink, Siletz, Oregon.
Thank you. Commissioner Hall DeFries.
Good morning, Dallas Hall DeFries from Baker County.
Thank you. And Commissioner Morrison.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Glad to be with you here from sunny Portland.
Thank you. Commissioner Moldahl.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Also calling in from sunny Southwest Portland.
Thank you. Director Colbert, will you introduce yourself too?
Good morning, everyone. Debbie Colbert, Director of Oregon Fish and Wildlife Department. Good morning.
Thanks. And Michelle, can you introduce yourself as well as tell us any logistics we need to know about or people online need to know about?
Good morning. I'm Michelle Tate. I'm here today to provide the commission and the director's support for this meeting. Before we begin, I do want to cover a couple of things. I'm going to ask everyone that outside of the commissioners to leave your cameras and your microphones off until you are called upon to speak. So I appreciate that. That helps us in a couple of different ways with the bandwidth and also with just the chatter in the background of the meeting. Technical support, if you need technical support, you can go ahead and text me through this chat, or you can email me at my email address. Everyone should have that. I've contacted all of you many times. Also wanted to announce that we are recording this, and this will be available online, and public can watch this movie through the ODFW YouTube channel. That's everything I have for today. Have a good morning.
Thank you, Michelle. For today's meeting, we have 3 major agenda items, which is a little bit shorter than we would typically have. We have our regular director's report, including a climate change update. And we have an executive session scheduled in case we need it. We don't think we will at this point, but we do have it noticed, so we can do that if we need to. So let's go directly to you, Director Colbert, and the director's report.
All right. Well, happy Friday, everyone. In your packets, you have the field reports in written form, and those are also online for members of the public. You know, again, I always have to just flag these as having lots of things of interest. This time, you kind of get a little bit of everything. If you're a techie person, there's the rollout of our new improved Compass, which is a way to visualize a lot of the data that's in our state wildlife action plan. And we've made some really awesome improvements and just rolled that out. If you like excitement, you've got a report from our hatcheries and some of the flow water, high flow challenges that we've had this winter. And if you get a chance, we've done a really cool, our communications folks did an outstanding video clip just showing some of the real-time work that happens at our hatcheries across the state when we see those extreme weather events, just to keep things going in terms of water flow and power. And it's just a good reminder that when you are dealing with millions of live animals, you can't have outages. And it's just a great video to show what it really takes in those kinds of instances. And then some really great coverage of a recent project with the Good Neighbor Authority program in the North and South Umpquas, more than 300 logs placed for pond turtle and salmon and steelhead habitat. So a little bit of everything in the report this go round. I'm happy to answer any questions on the field report if you have anything.
Nope, it was great.
All right, with that, we will go to the commission's financial report, and we have our Chief Operating Officer, Ken Loffing.
It looks like Bob has a question.
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt.
Good catch.
Yeah, no, it was just just a response on the director's report there. Another just recognizing staff there in the hatcheries, because when you read that report, boy, they were busy. I mean, cleaning screens every 15 minutes. It doesn't matter whether it's night or day, and intakes, and heck of a job they did in keeping everything live and everything going during that time, because I know what it's like.
Thank you.
Chair Wall, I think that Commissioner Moldal also has his hand up.
Okay, I'm not seeing the hands up, so thank you for catching those. Go ahead, Commissioner Moldal.
Yes, good morning. Thanks, Chair Wall. Appreciate that, Debbie. I just want to make a real quick remark. One item in the field report that caught my eye, and this concerns the Fishing Access Program and the collaboration and efforts by, in this case, ODFW staff, Weyerhaeuser, on the North Fork and the Nehalem River. Just generally creating and maintaining opportunities to improve public access is tremendously beneficial for hunters and anglers and anyone who enjoys access to the outdoors. I really believe this is important work for the department, and I strongly applaud this creative solution and all the efforts of those involved. So thank you. Excellent field report.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks.
Appreciate that.
Debbie, do you see other hands up?
No, I think
Okay.
we're ready to go on to Ken's report.
Great.
Thank you, Debbie. Good morning, Chair Wall, Vice Chair Hatfield Hyde, Commissioners, and Director Colbert. For the record, my name is Ken Lofink. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. Happy to kick things off with you again this morning with delivery of the agency's financial report. Excuse me. For the month ending November 30th, 2025, the department's unrestricted cash balance closed at $73.8 million, and the restricted cash balance closed at $89.6 million for a total of $163.4 million in custody at State Treasury. As a reminder, the unrestricted cash balance includes approximately $19 million in insurance proceeds earmarked for damages that were incurred during the 2020 wildfires. So minus insurance funds, our true unrestricted cash balance is $54.8 million. For the current 25-27 biennium, agency expenditures and revenues are tracking as expected. License sales in December were a little behind December 24 in total units or total products sold, but we're well ahead of licenses sold in 2023. As you're aware, as of December 1st, 2025, our new fee schedule that was approved by the legislature went into place. So we'll be monitoring sales really closely, and we'll report back to you on a regular basis as this goes. It's still too early to tell and make any assumptions on how our sales is going to go, but we'll look at it closely and continue to report back. And I'll also talk a little bit about license sales and fees at the end of my report. But continuing on, for expenditures through the end of November, November is 20% way through the biennium already. But through November, we've spent about 15% of our legislatively approved expenditure limitation. And we expect that rate, that spending rate, will continue through the biennium and will continue to track at or slightly below approved expenditure limitation through the end of the biennium. Last month, I discussed in detail the Legislative Fiscal Office 5% reduction exercises that all agencies are currently working through. As a reminder, due to projected state general fund and lottery fund shortfalls, the Legislative Fiscal Office requested that all state agencies submit reduction options totaling 5% of agency allocations for general fund, lottery fund, and other fund. ODFW submitted our response to the request to the legislature in November, and reduction options will be considered by the legislature for potential use this biennium. Any decisions on reductions will be made during the upcoming 2026 legislative session that will occur February 2nd through March 9th. The next State of Oregon economic and revenue forecast will come out February 4th. We'll be paying close attention to this. This will be a really important forecast for the legislative decisions that will be made again next month during session. I'll have more to report during our February commission meeting, where hopefully we'll have some more information about decisions that might be made by the legislature at that time. Moving on to 27-29 budget development, the agency has officially started 27-29 budget development with the development and submittal of preliminary policy option packages. We'll conduct a review of projected agency revenues and expenditures soon, and we'll use that information to make decisions on some of our concepts to move forward for further development. Over the next few months, we'll begin further development. Excuse me. Sorry about that. We'll begin further development of concepts of further budget development, including stakeholder engagement meetings and working with you all on the budget. We are also expecting our budget instructions to come out from the Department of Administrative Services Chief Financial Office soon. And once those are provided, we will also incorporate those into our budget development process. So still the very beginning stages of the process, but we'll keep you apprised along the way. And as a reminder, the agency request budget will be presented to you all at the June 2026 commission meeting. And last, I wanted to speak a little bit about license sales and fees, though not in your written report. I did want to note again, December 1st, our new fee schedule that was legislatively approved came out. And now that we're in the new year, this is the time that a lot of folks are going out and purchasing their annual license products. And as you know, we did a lot of outreach on developing these fees and took substantial reductions as a part of our budget to minimize the extent of the fee increases. But for some customers, this is the first time that they're hearing about it. And we are working through various channels in different ways to communicate with our customers so they're not surprised. But as a reminder, our resident angling fee went up from $44 to $50. Our hunting license went up from $34.50 to $39. And overall, our base licenses increased 12 to 14% depending on product, with some specialized products receiving a higher increase, some products receiving a lower increase, and some products receiving no increase at all, like our popular youth license, which are held flat through this process. Our last fee increase took effect in 2020, and since that time, cumulative inflation, according to the West Region Consumer Price Index, is 25 to 26%. So our increase is generally less than the rate of inflation. We are also now implementing the new $9 ocean endorsement. We've developed material and outreach that we are sharing through a lot of different avenues, everything from our front offices, social media, sports shows, boat shows last week in Portland, really trying to get out in front and help people understand why the need for the ocean endorsement, when they need it, where they need it, and why it was necessary to create, and what necessary to create that funding stream to sustain our really important and popular marine fisheries. One thing that we've noted here in the new year is that as folks see the new fees, look at our total budget and don't maybe understand the full complexity of our budget. In a lot of cases, don't understand why the fee adjustment was necessary. One example I'll provide is I listened to a podcast last week that looked at our total budget and specifically looked at the total amount of other funds in our budget and made the assumption that all the funds in the other fund category are derived directly from hunters, anglers, commercial fishermen. But as a reminder, other funds include, by definition, are all funds that are not general fund, federal fund, or lottery fund, and include things like our Pacific Salmon Recovery Funds, non-federal grants, bonding for capital improvements, and revenues from licenses and recreational licenses and commercial licenses. License revenues, when it comes to the context of our budget, make up just a small subset of our budget. Though critically important, license revenues make up about 30% of our total budget. Those funds are used directly for hatcheries, statewide fish and wildlife management programs, district biologists, monitoring, and OSP enforcement. These are boots on the ground efforts that are critically important for sustaining our recreational hunting and fishing and commercial fishing opportunities. As the commission knows, these programs are very tightly managed, with every position controlled by the legislature, every dollar spent accounted for, and through rigorous outreach and discussions with our stakeholders. I'll just end for me, it's a little disheartening to hear folks talking about whether the fee increase was necessary after all the work we did. But at the same time, I understand no one likes to pay more. We get that. But it really has motivated me to look at different ways and think about the ways that we discuss our budget with you all, with the public, and how we're showing our license buying public where their money is being spent to support the programs needed to sustain these critically important fisheries and healthy wildlife populations for hunting. And that's something I'm really excited to look at and look forward to diving into more here in this new early in 2026. So that wraps up my report. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
I don't see hands up. Debbie, can you?
I don't see any hands.
I
don't
have,
see any.
I have one question then, Ken, and that is, could you talk just a bit more about the short session? Are there already indications that the legislature, for instance, is likely to accept the cuts and then add back later in the year if we can? Or do you have any sense at all of what they're going to do with those 5% that we had to give them?
Yeah, Chair Wall, Commissioners, I think it is yet to be determined, right? Like we're hearing basically what's happened over the last.
Recognize my headphones.
Let me mute Linda there. Okay. Yeah. So Chair Wall, Commissioners. So what's happening now is we provided information. You know, we provided our response to the exercise in November. There has been work sessions, I guess you could say, with the Joint Ways and Means Committee subcommittee on natural resources over the last couple of months, where they're discussing things. We've been working closely with our legislative fiscal office on different options and prioritization. There has been no firm indication, I would say, you know, nothing like that I could bring and say like this is going to happen or we expect this. We're hoping that the February 4th forecast is positive. As a reminder, the forecast that came out in November was better than the one that came out in September. And if we continue that positive trend, I think that will help out a lot. I will say, I think lottery funds, right? Not so rosy. Long-term outlook is not so rosy. So I'm concerned there. But I don't, to answer your question directly, I've not had any direct indication of like how deep it's going to go, what it means, all that. The exercise, very specifically from Legislative Fiscal Office, was to create a list of reductions that could be actionable this biennium. So that's what we did. Whether or not that translates to, you know, a longer-term future biennia discussion, I think that's yet to be determined. But yeah, we'll see what happens in February. I'm hoping if there are reductions, they're one time and they're manageable and they're small. But really, I don't have any more information other than that.
Thank you. Actually, that helps. I do want to make one comment before we end the financial report, and it's one that you sent us the director's financial review that the agency does every year. And it was very positive, which I think is great performance. So thank you to the director for that. And it's also an important message that we send by having that one be so positive and so well done. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Great job. So next we have our climate and ocean change policy report, and we're really excited to welcome some folks here for that report. And I think it's particularly good timing. You know, Ken just mentioned the new ocean endorsement that began January 1st, which you're very familiar with. And as you know, that is really dedicated funding for our marine fish research and monitoring and assessment for really popular fisheries like you're going to hear about rockfish today. And the funds that are going to be generated by that endorsement are critical for us to have high quality assessments of how these populations are doing. And the better data we have, we've found the more opportunities we're able to recommend to the federal managers of those fisheries. So this is really important information and very timely report. And so just with that, I would like to welcome Dr. Kirsten Grorud Colvert and also Moritz Schmid, our research project lead, to join us for the report.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. Hi, I'm Kirsten. Thank you so much to Director Colbert, Chair Wall, the commissioners, and of course to my colleague Mo Schmidt, who's here. I'll be speaking today, and Mo's here to answer questions, but really we're here on behalf of a consortium of folks who have been doing this work. I'm a professor at Oregon State University, a marine ecologist, and I've been studying fish off our coast for the last almost 20 years now. So really excited to share with you today some of the findings. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We've got a, thank you. Let's see. So Okay, let's see if I can do it this way. Thanks for your patience. Okay, I think I've got it now. It says I need to give permission. Maybe Michelle, could you help walk me through that? Or perhaps you can provide permission?
I have it set up. How about, Kristen, if I go ahead and I share the PowerPoint that you, or the PDF that you provided me yesterday?
Okay, sounds good. Thank you for that. Great. Okay, so it goes with our online world, but we had a backup, so great. Okay, so thank you so much. So I'm going to be talking to you today about the Smurfing project, and we'll expand a little bit more about where that name comes from and why. But this is a long-term time series, very collaborative, to peel apart some of these things that are happening to our fisheries and our fish species off the coast. So next slide, please. I'm here on behalf, as I said, of a large and collaborative group of people. Of course, I sit here at OSU with collaborator Sue Spinagle, and we have a team of graduate students who have worked on this project over the last 15 years now. And also acknowledging our collaborators down in Port Orford at our OSU Port Orford Field Station who keep that work going. The folks at ODF&W, of course, Marine Reserves team, Marine Resources team that we've been collaborating with, and also Oregon Coast Aquarium and many local community members, including business owners and captains like Dave Lacey down in Port Orford. Next slide, please. So in this collaboration, Mo and I wanted to make sure to take the time to orient the commission and everyone attending to where this sits in ODF&W's Nearshore Ecology Program, and how in the constellation of different things that this program is doing, ecological research plays a crucial role in understanding what's happening to our resources along the coast. And this opportunity to build partnerships is something we've really leaned into over the years to make this research possible. Next slide, please. Part of the impetus for beginning this work was the marine reserve process in the state. The first 2 marine reserves that were established in 2012. And as a marine ecologist, reflecting on the opportunity that that gave us in our research to think about, first of all, collecting data before, and then after these management measures took place. And so we have a total of 9% of our state waters in marine reserves and marine protected areas off our coast. You'll see the 5 marine reserve sites there. And really, actually, next slide, please. The opportunity to use these as research reserves as one of their many goals means that we can use a lot of different tools to understand these areas, the species they're in, and how they're changing over time. So ODF&W has a suite of different research tools that it uses to gain these kinds of data and to understand things from different angles. Next slide, please. But this, our SMRF collaboration, sits in a particular place in that ecological research plan. So this is a long-standing collaboration. I began it in 2011, and ODF&W became a partner in 2014. We focus our work at Otter Rock and Redfish Rocks. Of course, they're the first 2, as I mentioned, but also they have very interesting settlement habitat for fishes, which I'll talk more about in a second. This research falls within the Marine Reserves Program mandates of conserving biodiversity, understanding and quantifying that conservation, and B, serving as scientific reference sites. So really they're hubs for collaborative research. And I think this project and program really is a case study of that. We work very closely to make the yearly SMRF cycle, as we call it, happen. Our sampling season is from about April or May through to September. We try to catch right before the spring transition, right after the spring transition, right before the fall transition. So there's a lot of planning that goes into it, and then our repeated sampling throughout the season requires a lot of people power. And over time, the value of this data set is really growing. In some of these later years, we've also collaborated with folks in ODF&W who are supporting the stock assessments. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Next slide, please. So let's take a moment to orient ourselves to groundfish in Oregon. We have beautiful spaces off our coast, beautiful species, and thriving fisheries. Next slide, please. I'm going to talk about something, recruitment variability. So as a scientist, one of the things that really got me interested in research is these complex lives that our marine species have, and how different stages are so indicative of how the future population, how adult dynamics play out over time. We know that fish have a lot of variability in recruitment, and this is something that's been documented time and time again. And because recruitment is so crucial to adult population dynamics, it also means it's really crucial to managing our fisheries, conserving our resources, because understanding what's coming in, that's the recruitment, really influences what we can take out and what we're conserving. Low recruitment can cause lower spawning stock biomass, and we've seen it in places around the world, including, for example, here, Georges Bank cod and Atlantic herring. Next slide, please. So this complex life of marine fishes really starts for rockfishes, which you see here in the deep ocean, where adults sometimes can live in very deep depths, can live to more than 100 years for some species. And as they spawn and release live young, these are up in the water column and then dispersing with the currents, sometimes for more than a month at a time. So during that dispersal, we call it the black box as ecologists, because there's so much we don't know about where fish are going, where they're ending up from the spawning stock. And what we do know is that when they come back to the near shore and settle, it's a really crucial stage of their life. There's a lot of mortality during that time. It's kind of the gauntlet. These small fish, right, have to navigate the open ocean, then settle to the near shore. And here along Oregon's coast, one of their favorite settlement habitats is kelp. So settling to kelp ecosystems, we call it recruiting to the benthos, that's the bottom, right? And then growing and joining the adult population, and in many cases moving to deep water. So this juvenile recruitment, this settlement is a really key component of understanding important species and stocks here in Oregon. Next slide, please. So the other amazing thing about Oregon is we have an incredibly productive coast. We know upwelling, this boundary current brings a lot of nutrients to our coastal and nearshore ecosystems, and it means that these fish are benefiting from these multiple trophic levels, multiple levels of productivity to support their populations. So they live in a productive, highly variable environment. But what does this mean when our ocean is changing? And when these when these conditions affect juveniles so strongly when they're dispersing and settling, what does it mean for recruitment? Next slide, please. So this is really this set of questions that motivate our work in the SMURF project. We are using multiple different types of techniques and methods to understand the dynamics of fishes along our coast that are commercially and culturally important. Next slide, please. So why SMURF? So SMURF stands for the Standard Monitoring Unit for the Recruitment of Fishes. And in this picture, you can see it fishing just below the surface here. Essentially, it's a glorified bag of snow fencing with a lot of interstitial spaces that the fish really like to settle to. Next slide, please. So these are moored in about 15 meters of water. You can see a SMURF up close there with some tiny fish if you zoom in, hanging out around it. They fish about 1 meter to 2 meters below the surface, and we deploy these just seaward of kelp habitat. So as fish are coming in, kind of for their first experience in the near shore, ready to settle, oftentimes they find a SMURF, and it's a nice place to take refuge and call home. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, our two focal sampling areas are around the Otter Rock Marine Reserve and the Redfish Rocks Marine Reserve. We deploy 4 SMURFs in each of those marine reserves, or just seaward of them. And we also, from the beginning, we're really mindful about collecting data inside and outside the reserves. So we also deploy 4 SMURFs in the comparison areas, which were identified at the outset of the marine reserve monitoring. Should be areas that are similar in habitat and in structure. So we're really comparing inside, outside. Next slide, please. So during the recruitment season that I mentioned, the SMURFs are retrieved every 2 weeks, and it really does take a whole team of folks to get in the water. OSU grad students lead this effort. We have a lot of undergrads at OSU that help with the field efforts. Oregon Coast Aquarium is our primary collaborator on our vessel, the Gracie Lynn. That's their vessel. And it involves closing the SMURF in a net, taking on board, shaking it out, and you can see there some of the juvenile samples that we get every 2 weeks. We preserve those and identified a species, which I'll talk about in a second, but also use the samples for things like otolith analysis and other ways to evaluate their condition. Next slide, please. So here are some of our common fish recruits that we get. You can see those species that are not grayed out are most abundant by number. I'm not going to be talking about cabezon today, although we do get a fair amount of cabezon as well. I'm focusing in on the rockfishes. And one of the things I want to point out from this slide is that from the beginning of this project, we followed techniques and methods that others have done elsewhere with SMURFing. Other SMURFers exist too, including down in California, Southern and Central California. It is very hard to identify rockfish juveniles to species just using visual identifiers. So here you can see we've grouped some of these into what we call complexes, and others have done the same. So for example, the OYTB complex are either olive, yellowtail, black, or blue rockfishes. And we can't tell by just looking at them, even counting their fin rays, all those things. It's really hard to be able to identify them to species. Next slide, please. So what these data show us is that there's a high degree of variability in recruitment of these fishes on our coast. So just to orient you, we're looking at their rate of settlement. So just think about that as how many are coming in over time. And each of the colors corresponds to a year from 2012 to 2023. And I'm showing you these years for a particular reason. First of all, to kind of show the breadth of the data set, but then also when we look at the central sites, which you see in the bars up above, and the southern sites. So that's Redfish Rocks, Humbug Mountain. Central is Otter Rock and Cape Foulweather. There's a lot of variability. And some years that are big for one complex in one place may not be in another place. And even in central sites, let's say, some years are big for one species and not another. But I've already misspoke because I said species, but here we're actually looking at complexes. And so this has really been a challenge over time to connect these data with management conversations and management measures because it was so hard to identify these. So next slide, please. What we're doing now, just in the last 2 years and with support from the Oregon Ocean Science Trust, is using new cutting edge genetic techniques to ID juvenile rockfishes. And so this is a method that was developed by Dr. Donna Bacher and her team, so outside of our lab. But what it allows us to do is to take a bunch of juvenile rockfishes. You know, we have more than 15,000 at this point, so it's not a situation where we can handpick and do them one by one if we're looking for a particular species. But now we can look at more than 50 potential rockfish species at a time and see which of our samples match up with that. So this is a collaboration with Kathleen O'Malley, of course, our ODF&W State Fisheries geneticist, and Cameron Royer, a grad student here at OSU. Next slide, please. So what this is showing you, if you can look towards the bottom there, those are the data for the OYTB rockfish complex. This is how we used to group them and how we used to report our findings. When we split those out now with our new knowledge about species level identification, we can see that black rockfish on the left and yellowtail rockfish juveniles on the right have different recruitment signatures. So you can imagine some years are big relatively for both, like 2022, which you see in that lime green color. But if we look at 2021, much higher recruitment for black rockfish than yellowtail rockfish. So these are some of the data that were kind of obscured before we had these new techniques and the funding support to be able to identify them. Next slide, please. So now the sky's the limit, and we can get down to these species level analyses. So you can see here, looking across the rockfish complexes that we were grouping before, these are the primary species that are sampled by SMERVs and that we've been able to track their recruitment over time over these years. Next slide, please. So now we're going to look at these data again, but species by species. So here again, all the way from 2012 to 2023, and we can see even within the same complex sometimes, like quillback, copper, china, we have very different. Sorry, I had little red boxes that would pop up, but to orient you to the middle there, quillback, copper, and china, you can see very different recruitment signatures. Black rockfish, if you look all the way to the left, up top for central data and down below for southern data, we also see different kind of magnitudes of recruitment for one species in different places. And tiger, all the way to the right, tends to have relatively low recruitment and sometimes markedly different in central versus southern, for example. The ends, just to let you know, are when no sampling occurred. So let's go to the next slide. So here we're looking across the recruitment and sampling season for each of those 6 species. Again, the same years, each of those years has the same color, but now we're looking at when during the season different species settle. So you can see it's a really interesting kind of progression when we're out there sampling. Some sample earlier in the season, like the black rockfish at the top, quillback, copper, and china, we used to group them. are around midsummer. But even for those, there's a little bit of a lag, let's say for China compared to quillback and copper, and tiger tends to come in later in the season. Next slide, please. So let's get down to it now. How are we using these data to understand the impacts of a changing climate that we're already seeing off our coast? One of the benefits of having a data set like this is that it's been going now for some years, and with the plan to continue that, when unexpected events like marine heat waves happen, we already have data before and after to be able to track what's happening. So this is the work led by Will Fenney, who was a former graduate student working with us and now is the at the Alaska Fisheries Science Center. What he was able to do is to take black rockfish samples before and after the 2014 heat wave that our coast experienced, and look at the numbers of black rockfish that were coming in across those years, and then also use their otoliths, the ear stones that every fish has that are like a flight recorder. They record in each tiny concentric circle, much like a tree ring, how quickly, how slowly a fish was growing during a certain amount of time. And then also the numbers correspond to how many days old they are for our juveniles, or then as fish get older, how many years old they are. So using these different methodologies and using the SMRF data, he was able to look back at what these settling juveniles were experiencing when they were larvae exposed to the conditions of the marine heat wave. And what he saw, and we're looking at mean larval growth, that top box there was during the marine heat wave. Black rockfish larvae, which they were when they were experiencing it, their growth increased during warm periods. And actually, we see this a lot in marine systems: warmer water, faster growth. But what he also found is that there was, in addition to that, a mismatch in the prey that they typically eat and then use to grow faster or slower in different periods of time. So overall survival was reduced. Interesting finding, right? We expect them to grow fast, do well, but if there's not a right match in their prey, then survival is reduced over time. Next slide, please. And what we see now, we're starting to dig into this even more so with other species, but what we see across our data set is that trend holds for growth. So settling fish tend to grow faster, but also to settle smaller. So it's a little bit of an interesting logic, right? Fish, when they're larvae, they want to grow fast and they want to get out of that open ocean and achieve a size where they can actually settle. They're strong enough and big enough to settle so that they can get out of that really vulnerable stage with super high predation. So settling fish are growing fast in that warm water, but they're also settling smaller because they've reduced the length of that time that they're in the open ocean. So this is a very interesting question that we're continuing to kind of unravel, because the next question is, what does this mean for the survival of these fish over time? And of course, because there's such a strong link between recruitment, spawning stock biomass, and fisheries decision-making, what does this mean for the cohorts of fish that are now growing through and after heat waves? Next slide, please. So just a couple of other fine points about how these data are being used. Of course, we set out with the intention to also provide information to the Marine Reserve's monitoring program. And what we're seeing here with non-reserve sites in the kind of teal color and reserve in the darker blue, central again on top, southern down below, is that we see these species are, most of them, actively using our marine reserves as settlement habitat. interesting to know that these reserves, although they weren't set up with prior knowledge about whether they would be recruitment havens, in fact, they are. And we're also seeing that, some species, again, vary more than others. And across sites, even some species receive different numbers than others. We wouldn't expect there to be huge differences coming from the marine reserves because, of course, these areas, these fish take many, many years to kind of have a feedback loop with recruitment. But crucially, these fish are actively using the marine reserves as juveniles. Next slide, please. And another thing that we're really excited about is this opportunity to collaborate with folks working on the stock assessments. So Allie Whitman and Megan Fettern have become colleagues of ours, and we're having a good time doing research together because to Allie and Megan's credit, they really saw the value of this SMRF data set to contributing to some of the models that are being developed for our stock assessment. So for example, the yellowtail rockfish stock assessment last year, through a lot of work to prepare the data in a format that's helpful for the assessment for the STAR panel. One of the findings that you see here is that adding SMRF data, there's a lot of colored lines there, but basically the thing you need to know is what's listed on the top has SMRF in it, and that's the best fitting model. The more we can include data about these juvenile fishes, the better we can make predictions. So before I move to acknowledge all our many collaborators and funders, I'd just like to say that the take-home message from this, for me, is threefold. The first is that our ocean is changing. We're seeing the effects. We weren't expecting things like marine heat waves to happen, but they are. And being able to understand how they are impacting our species at very crucial times in their life is going to continue to be very important. Secondly, long-term time series. This work happens by hook or by crook, and it really is growing in value over time because we see that we have before and after data now as events like this look to be increasing in intensity and frequency, and we want to have those data to be able to understand what's happening. And then thirdly, collaboration remains so key. This agency and academic partnership enables this work. We share resources, we share capacity, and every year it takes a lot of brainstorming and creativity to do so, but it's been wildly successful. So we're really grateful to all our partners. So next slide, please. Okay, so thanks to the many, I showed some pictures, but really more than 100 people now have collaborated in getting in the water and working in the lab. Sometimes we have a field day where 5,000 fish come in and need to be measured overnight. And so it's been a real community effort to do this work. So thank you for the chance to share it with you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner Morrison has his hand up.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Dr. Colbert, for that report on the work that you all have been doing. It's fantastic and really some very important data, as you pointed out, not only for stock assessments, but just for our general understanding, foundational understanding of what's happening in our nearshore habitat. So great to hear. Given how important that data is, I'm wondering if there is effort to expand the number of SMRFs that are out there, both in the other 3 marine reserves and outside of the marine reserves, to kind of give that contrasting view of what's happening on the Oregon coast.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Morrison, so much. That would be ideal. There are some considerations. One of the realities is that accessing the sites actually becomes a reality because adjacent ports are not as available for some of the other sites. But also, interestingly, recruitment habitat is very different too. So for example, Cape Perpetua is a fascinating area because it is likely there's some retention happening there because of the way that currents are working. But at the same time, it's very deep. There's not as much, it gets deep fast, I should say. There's not as much kelp in that area. So I think these kinds of studies are still very interesting, but we have to kind of think about logistics as part of it. But I will add something else to that. In Port Orford, there's so much research happening about the ecosystem level impacts of urchins and kelp and sunflower sea stars and the interaction among them. So we're also thinking really creatively. If we had more resources, that would be an area that we would probably focus first, because we'd be able to do a little more onshore and offshore comparisons if we were able to expand the SMRF program. Yeah, so there's some interesting questions we could ask.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Wall.
Thank you. Thank you for the report. It was great to hear this stuff. My immediate questions were about some of the stuff you started to get into, especially at the last, about the relationship between your information and that you have this long data set, and things like kelp or the heat dome. Could you talk a little bit more about connections that you're making with the kelp forest? Because I'm from the South Coast, and so I live near Port Orford. So we hear about the kelp and the absence of kelp all the time. So could you just talk a little bit more about what's happening with kelp and what's happening with our rockfish?
Yeah, thank you so much, Chair Wall. And to our state's credit, there's been investment in understanding this over the past years, and I'm really glad and proud of our state in keeping on top of this. We are definitely seeing changes over time. I had a graduate student who now works for ORCA, the Oregon Kelp Alliance, who used remote sensing data over the last decades to look at how kelp coverage has changed over time. And we definitely see that there's some hot spots of kelp along our coast, like I was mentioning to Commissioner Morrison. Some areas just tend to have more than others, but there is quite a lot of fluctuation in that. And now we're starting to see less overall. A lot of that is because of the ecosystem level impacts of losing sunflower sea stars as a result of the wasting disease. And now we hope that they are slowly coming back, but still the ecosystem level effects are being felt. And among them are the removal of this top predator in the subtitle, the sunflower sea star, means urchins now are rapidly growing in number. And of course, what that leads to is urchin barrens, areas with less kelp. So we are trying to understand more than ever how rockfishes play into this story. That is not something that's been widely studied here in Oregon. Cameron Royer, who I mentioned is using the genetics techniques as a graduate student, has another chapter of his dissertation where he's using an in situ, in place plankton imager. It's called the ISIS. Bob Cowan and Sue Spinagle's lab at Hatfield here at OSU created and has grown this technology. You fly this small image recorder just seaward of the kelp, and it shows you what the prey field of juvenile rockfish coming in, what they're experiencing. Is it very different in kelp areas versus non-kelp areas? And then what will that mean for the survival of these juveniles? So we're really excited about that. We think we're going to have a lot of very new, really kind of groundbreaking information. And also the last thing I would say is I really also want to call out the Oregon Marine Reserve's monitoring program, their hook and line surveys, their video surveys, other ways that they're understanding what's happening with the adults inside and outside these reserves. And I think as, again, that data set continues to grow, it'll be incredibly valuable for tracking how adult dynamics are changing with changing kelp.
Thank you. That really helps.
Thank you.
If you
Don't
don't
see
mind
any-
me, sorry.
Yeah, Mo, please.
Go
Hi.
ahead, Mo.
Oh, I was just going to say, if you don't mind me unmuting and signing the camera for a second, but yeah, Moritz Schmidt here from Oregon or ODFW Marine Reserve. So yeah, just, if there's any question on the ODFW side of the collaboration, then I'm happy to answer those. Working a lot with Kirsten and others on this, but only if there are questions. Happy to answer them.
Chair Wall.
I just have one quick one because we've seen what all of the data that the Marine staff collect have to do and can help us know what the biomass is, especially, and when harvest can happen. What I haven't heard as much about, and it would be useful to know, Mo, from your side, what are the key questions right now that we're getting some answers to on the climate change side, on the habitat side, if there's anything you can add on that, on that side of the question.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of good keywords there, habitat, climate change, right? And I just want to point out there that since beginning of last year, we are now the Nearshore Ecology Program, right, which combines marine habitat and marine reserves. So one of my colleagues, Scott Marion, is actually in charge of the Marine Habitat Program and, for instance, looks at, kelp distribution along the coast, which ties in really well with what Kirsten talked about. And then just a quick second note on the climate change front, I want to point out, right, that we are probably all aware of HB 4132 for the marine reserves, and one of our new more formalized goals and mandates is to look at resilience of marine reserves and of marine reserves in the wider context of the Oregon coast. So resilience, right, of different habitats to disturbances, including climate change, resilience of different species to disturbances and climate change, right? So, higher temperatures in different spots along the coast, but also low oxygen areas that can happen and can have, negative effects on fish and stocks. So there is a concerted effort underway in the Marine Reserves team, but also in the complete Nearshore Ecology Program to look at those things and to go from our 10 plus years of baseline data and knowledge gathering towards more like integrated products, thinking about, for instance, modeling that can take several different surveys and data into consideration, right? Thinking about something that integrates oceanographic data of temperature, oxygen, for instance, recruitment of juveniles, but also the adults, right? So going from these kind of separate product and analyses to more integrated ones. So looking at climate change is at the forefront of things we need to tackle in the reserves.
Thanks,
you.
Mo. I think Commissioner Labhart has his hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, Director. Thank you, Doctor, for the presentation. Most interesting. Mine is mainly an editorial comment. This does go to show the value of marine reserves and marine protected areas. And we need to make sure that we continue to provide adequate funding from the legislature to keep these areas under the management and adequate funding to continue research like this. I think it's extremely valuable. So, and this presentation does show the value of those marine reserves as nurseries and future of protecting those fisheries and expanding their opportunities. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think that I'll just wrap up by thanking Kirsten and Mo. This has been just really timely conversation around this research and what we're seeing in terms of the trends. And I just, for our agency, it's really a point of pride for us, our nearshore ecology program and the collaboration that we have with Oregon State University and our federal fish managers and so many others on the coast. And just your presentation put a really fine point on what it takes to do this kind of complex long-term work, and that no one agency can do it in a silo. It really takes broad collaboration and a lot of folks coming at these things from different perspectives, and just can't thank you enough for the work that you've done, both of you, on this. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Director Colbert.
So I think the next thing in the director's report, Chair Wall, is adopting the temporary rules.
Yes.
Commissioners, in your packet, you have 7 temporary rules. Just to give you a feel, one of them is kind of a housekeeping cleanup. We've got one related to our crab season opening. We've got 3 that are like joint Oregon-Washington activities on the Columbia. And then one of them I would just flag is related to our wildlife division. I just mentioned it because you don't see as many temporary rules coming from our wildlife division. But in this case, we have adjusted the number of tags for our 2026 Rocky Mountain goat hunts that you adopted in 2025. We've since completed some additional population surveys, and we reduced the number of tags in the Snake River Wildlife Management units. So we went from having 2 per, let me just get my notes here, 2 tags in each of 2 hunts, and instead we have gone to 1 tag in each of those 2 hunt areas. I'm happy to answer any questions you have on the temporary rules.
Director, I have one quick question, and it's the Columbia River stuff. If I read the rules right, we opened the sturgeon, the white sturgeon in the John Day Pool for 4 months. And then we had another rule soon after that to close it, like 9 days into that 4 months. Is that because we hit it hard and harvested as many as we thought we were supposed to, or was it something else?
That's a very good question, Chair Wall. Essentially, they met their quota within that period.
That was quick. Thank you. Then if there aren't other questions from the commissioners, is there a motion on this one?
Yeah, I move to ratify the 7 temporary rules set forth on the January 16th, 2025 agenda.
I can second that. Oh, good job, Hugh.
Thank you. Commissioner Spellbrink moved and Commissioner Morrison seconded to ratify the 7 temporary rules as just read into the record. Let's do a thumbs up on this one, commissioners. Those in favor? It looks unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Director, for the report. We do have one commission update that I didn't know about before when I talked to you, Director, but it's a short update from Commissioner Spellbrink.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Wall. Yeah, I just I talked to some staff and then Chair Wall yesterday about maybe taking a short opportunity to recognize everyone involved in this upcoming annual Umpqua Fishery Enhancement Derby that takes place the end of this month in Roseburg. It's a community-sponsored event that gets a lot of support from our local ODFW staff down there, from the local Oregon State Police Fish and Wildlife personnel, from local tribal partners, and from local businesses down there. I'll put in a lot of effort. The Derby events begin on Wednesday, January 28th with a Students' Day up at Rock Creek Hatchery, our Rock Creek Hatchery facility there, east of Roseburg. Thursday is Kids Day at Cooper Creek Reservoir, where they get the kids out in boats and run them around and get them wet a little bit and send them home. And Friday and Saturday are fishing derby days. Friday evening, January 30th, is the banquet and auction at the fairgrounds. I think last year, I think there's capacity there for like 750 people, and I think it was at capacity last year, as I remember. In the past, the Derby has raised more than $2.1 million, all directly supporting restoration, enhancement, and education projects throughout the Umpqua Basin. And if anyone's, more interested in find out more information about when the banquet is and they can search online. You can search under the Umpqua Fishery Enhancement Derby. You'll find all the information, or anyone can get a hold of me also. That's all I had. I just figured it'd be good to recognize them.
Thank you, Commissioner Spellbrink. That was great. I think then we can move to public forum, and after that, commissioners will take a short break. We do have several people signed up for public forum, so we will start right in with the first one is an elected official, Commissioner John Hillock from Wallowa County. And I would mention to everybody who's doing public forum, we typically do 3 minutes each just to keep it fair. And we don't act on what we get from what we hear in public forum. We do, though, appreciate very much the information and the perspectives that are brought to us through this forum. So let's go right to Commissioner Hillock, if you will go ahead.
Thank you. Excuse me. I'm Commissioner John Hillock from Wallowa County. This is a follow-up to the materials I provided to the board on January 7th. Commissioners, thank you for your time. I also want to recognize and thank ODFW staff for the work they have done to date and for their continued dedication in addressing complex wildlife management issues. Over the past several months, Wallowa County citizens and staff have closely examined wolf-related impacts, including livestock depredation, declining ungulate herds, and increasing human-wolf interactions. Continued decline in big game herds will place an increasing economic burden on the county through reduced hunting opportunity, impacts to local business, and a long-term effect on the region's outdoor economy. That past work has been also reinforced a key biological reality. Wolves reproduce quickly and expand rapidly, and then when unmanaged, experience shows that once populations grow beyond early management thresholds, conflicts escalate faster than available tools can respond. Waiting until conflict reaches a crisis point puts everyone behind the curve. Like elk and other big game species, wolves could benefit from area-specific objectives that reflect local condition, prey availability, livestock use, and social tolerance. Establishing threshold population levels that minimize depredation while allowing for increasing prey availability would provide a clearer management framework and reduce chronic conflict. The experience of Montana and Idaho illustrate that the consequences of delayed or overly uniform management. Both states allowed conflicts to intensify before intervening, resulting in high costs, fewer options, and prolonged controversy. Wallowa County is still an opportunity to avoid repeating these outcomes. The Oregon Wolf Plan already provides management tools intended to be used before damage becomes routine. However, current responses remain largely reactive, addressing impacts only after conflict has escalated. Early intervention is therefore a practical management tool, not a failure in stewardship. This is not a call to eliminate wolves, but to manage them responsibly in a working landscape while balance is still achievable. I respectfully request that the board schedule a special meeting on May 15th for a dedicated discussion on wolf management, open to interested counties, agencies, and stakeholders to share information and perspectives on current conditions and management tools. Thank you for your time and all the work that you do to support local communities.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Debbie, are there hands? Otherwise, we'll go to the other people.
No hands up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Then
Commissioner.
we'll go to the next person, who's Alicia Zinni, and then Chris Cunningham, and then Raleigh Bigsby. So go ahead, Alicia.
Well, good morning. I'm Alicia Zini. I'm a Joseph area landowner, and I'm speaking to urge the commission to schedule an agenda topic as soon as you can on Wallowa County's recently adopted wolf management policy. This countywide wolf management policy is essential to ensure wolves are managed in balance with the other species that the commission is charged with managing. In short, wolf introduction into Wallowa County has been so successful, it now jeopardizes the future of our deer and elk populations. A wolf needs a steady diet to survive, and those dietary sources are dwindling with each passing day. This policy recognizes the biological balance needed to support both wild and managed species in Wallowa County. A wolf's need for calories does not wait for meeting schedules and policy discussions, and our deer and elk herds are plummeting. The do-nothing alternative is no longer a reasonable option. Through collaboration with the Oregon Hunters Association and Oregon Cattlemen's Association, the Wallowa County Commissioners developed a county-wide policy that adopts Oregon Wolf Plan objectives and simply adopts the plan's tools to begin a pilot project in Wallowa County for managing wolf populations. While some citizens of Oregon might find this portion of the Oregon Wolf Plan controversial, I assure you that it's desperately needed to avoid the collapse of the county's deer and elk populations. I'm also concerned for the repeated depredation and losses that my neighbors, the area's ranchers and backyard livestock owners are experiencing from unmanaged wolf populations. Reported and confirmed losses from wolves only tell a portion of the story about the economic pressures on livestock owners. I urge you to schedule Wallowa County Commissioner John Hillock and his team of consultants to present the plan to you as soon as possible. And I ask you to seriously consider the solutions they offer. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll go next to Chris Cunningham. I think you're on mute, Chris. Michelle, is there anything you can do to help with that?
You know, Chris is unmuted. His microphone is unmuted.
Maybe turn up the sound.
And I see him on screen now, so we've got him here. I'm not sure. So now I've got Chris is unmuted and I see him on the screen. I just think that his audio is not coming through.
We'll wait. We'll come right back to you, Chris, and give you a minute to maybe see what you can do with it, and maybe go to Raleigh Bigsby.
Good morning to the commissioners. My name is Raleigh Bigsby. I'm a Wallowa County rancher and vice president of the Stock Growers Association in Wallowa County. To start off with, I'd like to thank ODF&W for the advances in management that we've seen in the past year. I ranch in one of the very critical areas of Crow Creek, where some of you, I'm sure, have heard of the heavy depredations we received in the springtime upon turnout. I'd just like to address the wolf populations that are in that particular area that we're seeing now in comparison to last year. We've got 11 packs on the landscape in Wallowa County, of which last year the report was 62 head of wolves throughout the county. Upon recent collaring expeditions that ODF&W has done, it's my understanding that there are 14 wolves in the Coon Ridge pack and 8 wolves in the Chestin pack, which are the two most adjacent to the Crow Creek area. So that being said, we've got 22 wolves in just 2 packs that are in a highly critical area where we see repeated heavy depredation year after year. Again, I'd like to thank the response that we had last year from ODF&W in the authorized lethal take in in a fashion that unfortunately the ranchers are still losing livestock. Looking at it going into this year, we're going to be up against the same, if not worse, circumstances in that area or an adjacent area to it. My ask would be that they maybe look at some proactive management to try to mitigate some of the losses that are sustained by the ranchers. We have seen it's very pleasing to a lot of us to see the advancement that we've had, but if there was any way possible to, I know under the Wolf Plan it's probably not possible, but to maybe get ahead of the thing this year before we turn out in April. That being said, I'm checking the list here. There's one thing that I go back to time and time again, and I'm going to read a little expletive. Dr. David Mesh was a research biologist that has studied wolf interaction since 1958 and is very knowledgeable of wolf biology and has been involved in the reintroduction of wolves. The challenges of wolf management are primary social and political rather than biological. Wolves possess high reproductive potential and wide dispersal capability, which we've seen in Wallowa County, making passive management unrealistic in modern human-dominated landscapes. And that was by David Mesh in The Challenges of Opportunity of Wolf Recovery of 1995. Also, one other thing that he wrote was management through regulation. According to him, every year a certain percentage of wolf populations must be taken by humans in addition to natural mortality to keep the population stable. According to his findings, up to 50% of young wolves over 5 to 10 months old must be taken each year to bring a wolf population under control. And this was written in a 2017 publication. He describes, among other things, livestock depredation control in the United States. That being said, Wallowa County's been at the tip of the spear in the wolf program in Oregon for going on 2 decades now, and we have sustained loss after loss after loss, year after year. Knowing that we're 2 years out from another revision of the wolf plan, my ask would be if there's anything we can do ahead of time to try to mitigate some of our losses on our end, that would be fantastic.
Thank you, Mr. Bixby.
Thank you.
We will go back to Chris Cunningham.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
No. Oh, good. I apologize.
No, it's fine.
Sometimes things get a little difficult for older folks. What a glimpse I had this morning into the complexities that you folks have to deal with, and I appreciate your willingness to serve Oregon in such a special way. You know, you heard briefly this morning about a sunflower sea star that's an apex marine predator, I think Dr. Colbert said, on the southern Oregon coast. And now I'm asking you to shift your thoughts to one of the most northeastern spots in the state and think for a few minutes about a 4-footed apex predator that has made life in Wallowa County interesting, but even more challenging than it already is. I have appreciated the biology of the wolves for close to 25 years now. We were intimately involved with the Imnaha Pack when they became one of the largest packs, or the largest pack in the state of Oregon. We had many deprivations off that pack, and have watched the packs come and go over the last 20 years. My wife and I followed one of the Imnaha wolves pack, collared wolf that made its way down to California, and started the wolf population down there just to see the country that wolf traveled through, and it was a fascinating journey for us to see what kind of an interesting and complex apex predator they are. And I guess I'm here to tell you that The wolf population in Wallowa County has become very, very significant. We suffered many losses this year on our forest permits. We probably have had more confirmed kills, livestock takings than anybody in Wallowa County over the last 10 years, and they are back in force. The populations are out of balance. They're impacting the elk and the deer herds, and we need help. My biggest fear is that Wallowa County ranchers have maybe come to a breaking point because of the significant strength of the packs right now and the continued deprivations. I would urge you to give us a little more time to talk through this and adopt Commissioner Hillock's request to schedule a meeting for May 15th or at your nearest, easiest convenience. Thanks very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Mr. Cunningham. Commissioners, questions or thoughts? Go ahead, Commissioner Hatfield Hyde.
Thank you, Chair Wall. First, I really want to thank the folks, Commissioner Hillock, and others who have brought their comments this morning on the issues in Wallowa County. I especially want to appreciate the tone, and we saw this in the last Wolf Plan update. I think Chair Wall would agree. Maybe don't want to put words in your mouth, but I know on the livestock side we had John Williams, and then on the conservation side we had people presenting, including Western Landowners Alliance, and the tone was turned down in a way that allowed us to communicate and set a new tone, I think, for how we talk about these issues in Oregon. It is imperative that we keep that tone so that we can have these kind of conversations. Normally, we don't address these issues until it's the Wolf Plan. But I would encourage us as a commission and Director Colbert to consider broadening these conversations and normalizing talking about it more often, in ways that continue to keep the tone low while we try to work through really tough issues that are happening. So I actually have like an entire list of notes here, but what we know about wolf issues in Oregon is that relationships are critical. So I think ODF&W, on at least the time I've been on this commission, has made additional efforts to really address issues across Oregon, but also in Wallowa County specifically. And I appreciate those relationships, and we need to continue those. And I think there's a desire to do that. I think Wallowa County is in an interesting position because they are, specifically able to use lethal control now, whereas a lot of Oregon, where there are also issues that are affecting communities, does not have that tool. So if we have conversations about this, I think we need to talk that through. And their ideas about wolf hunting may be appropriate, but it needs to be also in a statewide context for what is allowed in other places and how it affects other things. The other piece that we are facing right now that's critical, that ODF&W has limited control over is compensation for livestock producers that have issues. We know that there are things moving in the Oregon legislature. We know that wolf issues can become a lightning rod issues, and we want to make sure that as we look at these conversations, we don't do anything that upsets other apple carts at the same time. Just something to think about. I'm very concerned. Also, not something that ODF&W controls, but our conflict prevention programs in Oregon through things like lethal and non-lethal wildlife services play a big role. And that is a federal funding issue and something that would be interesting for people to consider as we have conversations. We also have, as we speak, actions happening on the federal level as we wait for the United States Senate to decide whether or not they will move forward with delisting in Oregon. I absolutely understand how difficult these issues are for family ranchers. Just our family has had 8 depredations this year that are confirmed. That is thousands and thousands of dollars for family ranchers. Family ranchers are pretty misunderstood in Oregon. We provide fish and wildlife habitat, we store clean water, we keep open space, and we nourish families. And because sometimes people look at large land bases, they think that family ranchers are really rich, and they're not. So when we sustain huge losses, it's a big deal. I really hope that we can continue in a spirit of reasoned conversation, because this issue doesn't just affect Wallowa County, it affects the state of Oregon. And it also is a really important place for us to find ways to move forward with people who have different views on the issue. We have the opportunity to do that. I am proud of ODF&W and their efforts to try to work harder in Wallowa County and in other places in Oregon. And I want to continue in that spirit. So Chair Wall, Director Colbert, I don't know how we exactly move forward on these kind of conversations. But I am one commissioner that would like us to normalize them. And if we can keep the tone low, we can normalize them. We can meet, we can talk, we can work together. If we get all wound up, and it winds you up. The minute you talk about wolves, we all get wound up. But maybe we can work to normalize these conversations in the interim between wolf plans. That's just my thought on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Hatfield Hyde. Anytime you want to put words in my mouth, like appreciation for the fact that people in this conversation across the state have kept the tone at a level that we can continue to communicate, you can put those words in my mouth, and I actually think them, and I deeply appreciate what the department has done to make that the case as well. And the discussion we had that the department put together about the wolf plan many months ago is one of the highlights from the time I've been on this commission. It was everybody in the room, and it was dealing with contentious issues, and it was well done. We came out of that with 3 focal points. We have kept track of those and are working on them. And I, again, am deeply appreciative of the department. I think at this point, if we could, unless there's anything else, I would like to go back to the rest of public forum and go to Quentin Leroy Bigley.
Can I just say one quick plug?
Chair Wall, I think Dallas Halls Debris and Mark both have their hands up. I don't think you can probably see that.
I can't see it. And go ahead, Commissioner DeFreeze and then Commissioner Labhart, and let's keep it real brief if you will.
I'll be really short. I mostly just wanted to echo a lot of the sentiment that Commissioner Hatfield-Hyde had, urging further conversation, and just I think the quality and tone of the testimony that we heard this morning was great. And I would love to keep these conversations open. I know how hard everybody on all sides are working. So I think that there has been acknowledgement of that by enough folks. I don't need to repeat it. One thing that I did also just want to put a plug in is actually next Thursday, there's going to be a presentation at the Pacific Northwest Forest and Range Labs by Dr. Laura Mingak. I think I pronounced her name correctly. That is about kind of the complex relationships between people and wildlife and how that is affecting ranchers as they're not just facing wolves, but also drought and other things. And I haven't heard this presentation, nor have I read her research, but this might be a good opportunity for commissioners to learn too about kind of like past just the numbers and the wolf depredations. How is this really affecting and stressing out these communities? So I'll send out an email to the commissioners about that information, about that talk.
Thank you, Commissioner Labhart.
Thank you, Chair Wall. So I'll be real quick. Thank you, Commissioner Hillock and the others for your testimony today. I just want to make sure that the public and you all know that on January 14th, our director did respond in a letter, and I'll just quickly summarize. Please be assured that addressing and reducing wolf livestock conflict in Northeast Oregon has been and will continue to be a priority for the department and the Fish and Wildlife Commission, as noted in their most recent review of the plan. I look forward to following up on your county resolution, including reviewing the management actions requested and the extent to which those actions are authorized under the wolf plan. So we hear you. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go on then to Quentin Leroy Bigley. And after that will be Kelly Peterson. So Quentin.
Chair Wall, we haven't seen Mr. Bigley this morning.
Okay, then let's go on to Kelly Peterson and then David Blessman. Kelly?
Hi there. Thank you. Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning, Chair Wall, Commissioners, and Director Colbert. My name is Kelly Peterson. I'm the Oregon State Director for Humane World, formerly the Humane Society of the United States. I spoke about this same issue more than a year ago, and I'm here again today just to continue to elevate a major gap in Oregon's trap check rules. Under current administrative regulations, there are still no trap check requirements for black bears or other game mammals. And that means that a black bear, or really any game mammal, can legally remain in a trap for days or even weeks before anyone is required to check it. And last year, there were follow-up discussions about bringing together a small group to discuss establishing a trap check time for game mammals. That process hasn't yet taken shape, and I really know it reflects the increasing demands on both the agency and the commission, and I appreciate that. I also understand from recent conversations with agency staff that there is a goal to bring forward a proposal for your consideration this spring. And I look forward to that process because it really is time. And for background, each year in Oregon, nearly 200 black bears are trapped for property, timber, livestock damage, or safety concerns. And that's without any requirement for checking those traps. And of course, in 2022, this commission took an important step by adopting a 48-hour trap check time for predatory animals and restraining traps. And that was consistent with the long-standing fur bear trap check requirement of 48 hours. And that decision brought Oregon's rules more in line with modern science and the values Oregonians hold for our public's wildlife. We know extensive scientific literature shows that any animal held in a trap experiences stress, dehydration, exposure to the elements, and injury risk, regardless of if that animal is classified in Oregon as a fur bearer, predatory species, or a game mammal. And while we still believe as an organization, a 24-hour trap check time is the most humane standard, At a minimum, there is no practical or ethical reason not to apply that same 48-hour standard already in place for fur bearers and predatory animals to game mammals. So today I'm just here revisiting this issue and to urge the commission and the agency to make this a priority in the new year, to bring forward a proposal that requires at least a 48-hour trap check time for game mammals. So thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Kelly. Commissioners, if you have a question, just jump right in, because again, I can't see hands right now. Seeing none and hearing none of you jumping in, I will go to David Blessman, and then we'll go to Kristen Cook. Oops, I think you're muted.
Thank you, Chair Wall and Commissioners. Better now?
Yes, we heard that. Yes, go ahead.
And can you see me?
Yes.
Great. Well, David Blessman, Silverton, Oregon. I'm a hunter, angler, and taxpayer. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'd like to read my comment, and time allows, I'd like to offer a campfire report in response to some things that Ken senses from his podcast reviews. In response to the fee increases, I want to focus on one issue, expense growth, and especially in light of your budget development process you're about to start. The agency operates in a market where demand for licenses is largely inelastic and wildlife supply is biologically constrained. That means when costs rise, the easiest response is to raise fees, not because outcomes improve, but because the market allows it. Without firm oversight, there's no natural brake on spending. That's why spending discipline must be structural, not discretionary. I urge the Commission to adopt a formal operating expense cap tied to inflation. If expenses grow faster than inflation, the burden immediately falls on hunters and anglers through higher fees, without any guarantee for better conservation results. A spending cap does not prevent good management. It forces prioritization. It requires the agency to distinguish between core conservation work and lower value activities. A cap ensures that fee increases are driven by necessity, not convenience. Just as important, any proposal to exceed that cap should require an explicit vote, a clear justification, and sunset provision. If spending growth is truly unavoidable, the Commission should be willing to say so publicly and to tie to specific outcomes. Absent that kind of rule, every future budget discussion starts from a higher baseline and costs only move in one direction. Inflation indexing creates predictability for the agency and fairness for the public. In a system where prices adjust easily and quantities do not, governance is the only real restraint, which means the Commission must set an expenses cap. Spending caps tied to inflation are not anti-conservation. They are pro-accountability, pro-trust, and pro-long-term sustainability. 30 seconds left. Ken, around the campfire, we do know that dollars come from feds, lottery, and state. Your message is out there where the money comes from. What's not out there is how's the money spent. The rate of increasing expenses you're not reporting on with the energy you are, Mr. Ken, on your license sales. Fore and aft of your presentation. Let's focus on expenses and an inflation-based cap, please. I welcome your questions.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Blessman? I don't see any, so thank you very much for your presentation, and we will go to Kristen Cook.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi.
And we can see.
Good morning, Chair Wall,
Yes.
Dr. Colbert, and everybody else. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity. My name is Kristen Cook. I'm the owner of Sauvie Island Cove Market on Sauvie Island. I'm here today to try to say my small business has been drastically and negatively affected by the ODFW in the past few years. I'm requesting two things. One, that ODFW does not do the checkpoint this year, and that the ODFW creates a user-friendly, unique parking website to buy the parking permits for the beaches. The checkpoint inhibits traffic drastically to my store. My sales dropped 30% after they started. The checkpoint is unsafe. It blocked the fire department from getting to run down at the beach. I know that because the fire department comes in all the time. That wasn't an issue before the checkpoint. They had to wait for cars to move. They had to wait for the blockade to move. So that's dangerous. The visitors are turned around and not allowed to drive on public road unless they buy a parking permit, even if they're not parking. And I tested that myself. People are avoiding the island due to the extra headaches. The ODFW person I spoke with recently told me their solution would be more signs, which have been incorrect, and they've refused to fix the incorrect signs. People also can't read signs when they're driving 35 miles per hour. So I would really like to see the checkpoint not be here. It's unnecessary. It was chaotic and confusing and upsetting to customers and drastically affected my business. The other thing was the website. The website is incredibly user-friendly. It's not a merchant website. The ODFW took away our ability to sell the prepaid permits, which have been working for decades, which are fast and efficient. Customers love that. Now there's a lengthy, confusing purchasing online only. My customers come out here for peace and for nature. They don't need to wade through pages of hunting permits and all these other things. They're only interested in parking permits. They don't need to enter their social security number, which is on the very first page, says that you will need to enter social security number, and that upset a lot of people. So people are not wanting to do that. I'm requesting that the ODFW creates a unique site just for parking permits to streamline that and make it simpler for everyone, and to use someone who has merchant website experience to create that so it's user-friendly for the public. So my two things are no checkpoint. It's chaotic and dangerous and limits my traffic to my store, which is very negative, and a unique website for the parking permits. So those are my two requests, respectfully. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Kristen. And we do remember hearing you at the previous meeting as well. So thank you for that.
Yes, I'll see you next time.
Okay, thank you. Michelle, is there one more person that you have online ready to speak on Mule Deer?
Actually, yes, I do have Paul Davis. He's our individual that's coming in by phone.
Okay, go ahead, Paul.
So Paul, it's *6 to oh, you got it.
Can everybody hear me now?
Yes.
Right. I'm Paul Davis, and kindly thank you for listening to me. My family has been with the Access and Habitat program for 20 plus years. And yes, we think it's a great program to be part of. We own the Alvord Ranch. We sponsor the Alvord Access area. Over the last 20 years, we've noticed a huge decline in the mule deer population in the Steens and Whitehorse unit. Recently, we've have a confirmed ranch cow killed by a cougar this past fall, and this is telling me that there's a food issue for the cougars. I feel the balance of nature is upside down, and here's what I want. We need our deer population back. And with this, all the animals will succeed when this happens. To gain access across our ranch, one must check in at the Alvord Hot Springs, where I require the possession of a current hunting license. Once proven, the person must sign in my check-in book, and then I will, at no charge, issue the code for the access. So with this program of mine, there are lots of non-hunters buying licenses for access. And as I see this, it's more of a membership program that brings knowledge and extra funding to you. Last year's check-in numbers were approximately 374 people. I only require one person to sign in per day per group, and most groups, are 2 people, so we should double that usage. I have asked the experts as to why they're, in their judgment, why the mule deer population is suffering. The answer was given, said that the browse has changed and the deer are starving. I remember our haystacks having heavily eaten on if we did not fence off the deer away. Currently, we don't need to do any fencing because we don't have a deer problem to deal with. As I said earlier, we own the Alvord Hot Springs, and it's getting more common for people just to go hiking in the Steens. And I am often told by hikers they are finding dead bighorn sheepheads in their pathway. I understand that in 1970, that's the year we bought the ranch, there were 3 hunts, 7 tags per hunt in the governor, so that's 22 if my math is right. Today, 56 years later, we have 2 hunts, 2 tags in the governors, that's 5. So it's went from 22 to 5 in 56 years. Seems this is an issue that with all the money spent on the sheep, the animal numbers should be on the rise, not falling. Again, depredation is out of control and our wildlife is vanishing. Please do something soon or we'll find ourselves seeing these animals in a zoo. Thanks again, Paul Davis with the Alvord Ranch.
Thank you, Paul. Appreciate your comments, and I don't see questions from the commissioners. So we will take a 10-minute break and come back and start with Exhibit A, the minutes, and then go right into our 3 main exhibits for today. So if you can be back in 10 minutes, please. Thank you, everyone. Commissioners, I think we can go ahead and get started again, and welcome back to everybody online. Can we deal with the minutes first? And we're looking at the minutes from the December 12th meeting. If there are questions, let's go ahead and ask those. Otherwise, if I could get a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the December 12th, 2025 meeting minutes and continued authority to correct grammar and punctuation.
Thank you.
Second.
Thanks. Let's do a thumbs up on these, if you will, commissioners. And Michelle, it looks like it's unanimous on that one. Thank you. Let's go on then to Exhibit B, which is the ceremonial and subsistence hunting tag numbers for the Burns Paiute tribe. And we have Phil Milburn here for us. And also, I believe that Tracy Kennedy will be speaking. So Phil, would you like to go ahead and introduce this one?
Yes. Thank you, Chair Wall. Good morning, Chair Wall, members of the commission, and Director Colbert. For the record, my name is Philip Milburn, District Manager for the Klamath and Malheur watersheds. I'm here today to present proposed changes to the hunting opportunities for the Burns Paiute tribe. The department has issued big game tags to the Burns Paiute tribe under rules adopted by the commission since 2017 to support the cultural traditions of the tribe. The rules governing this program have been amended 2 times since they were adopted. In 2020, the commission increased elk tags from 6 to 15. And in 2022, the hunting area was amended to make deer tags valid on Malheur National Wildlife Refuge when combined with a refuge special use permit. This change was in response to changes at the refuge, which also created a similar opportunity for non-tribal hunters. In 2022, Burns Paiute Tribe and the state of Oregon signed a memorandum of agreement focused on collaboration to meet shared goals for fish, wildlife, and habitat management in Southeast Oregon. The MOA memorialized the commitment to the big game hunt program that was previously adopted but did not include any changes. There are 4 components to the amendments before you today. The first relates to cleanups needed following commission adoption of new hunt areas for mule deer. The proposed amendment would make these tags valid for the Sage Hen and Gentura deer hunt areas instead of the Wildlife Management Unit structure. Deer hunt areas have replaced management units for all other in Eastern Oregon mule deer hunts starting in 2026, and this change would create consistency with that new structure. The second change is to modify the hunt areas for elk and pronghorn. These will continue to be based on the Wildlife Management Unit structure, but would include the entirety of the Silvies, Malheur River, and Beulah units. This change simplifies the hunt area to align with the WMU boundaries and adds the Beulah unit. Burns Paiute Tribe owns property in the Malheur River and Beulah units that needed to be specifically addressed in the previous rule to allow hunting on those properties. Third change is an increase in mule deer tags from 8 to 16 and elk tags from 15 to 30. In evaluating the proposed changes to the hunt areas and tag numbers described, the department considered the biological status of the wildlife populations of interest, current participation and success rate of Burns Paiute Tribe hunters, number of tags available to non-tribal hunters in each unit, and likelihood of non-tribal hunters drawing controlled hunt tags in each unit. The proposed changes should have minimal impact on non-tribal hunters and will increase opportunity and support the needs of the Burns Paiute Tribe. The final component is an administrative change and not biological. This change would add subsistence as a recognized purpose for these tags, in addition to the cultural and ceremonial uses currently allowed. For background, these terms are used by Burns Paiute Tribe for administering their hunt program and impact how meat and parts from animals that are harvested will be used. However, these distinctions are not relevant for ODFW management of the species or in administering this program. The proposal is for the department to issue the harvest tags as described in the rules, and Burns Paiute Tribe would determine if further designation as cultural, ceremonial, or subsistence use is needed when the tags are provided to the selected tribal hunters. All other rules governing time, place, and method of take for these permits would remain in place. And that concludes the information that I have for you today. And I'll turn it over to Chair Kennedy from the Burns Paiute Tribe.
Thank you. Welcome, Chair Kennedy.
Ishawawa, good morning, Chair Wall and Commissioners. So my name is Tracy Kennedy, and I'm an enrolled member of the Wadadaka Band of Northern Paiutes, what you guys call Burns Paiute Tribe, and I currently serve as the chair of the Tribal Council. Me and my family come from a long line of the Wadadaka people, and their teachings guide me as I speak with you all today. So just to give a little bit of history on the Burns Paiute tribe, back in 1972, there was a treaty that was called the Treaty of Peace and Friendship in 1868, where the United States, but the United States never ratified that. Despite this, federal government did establish the Malahir Reservation in 1872, which did encompass 1.8 million acres across southeast Oregon. But a few years later, following the Bannock War of 1878, our people were forcibly removed from our homelands in southeast Oregon and marched to Fort Simcoe and Fort Vancouver in Washington. When our survivors finally returned home, they found a home. The Malahir Refuge was dissolved, open to settlers. So our people did come home, but they came home without a homeland to live in. Despite these losses, our connection to this land reaches back to time immemorial. For more than 15,000 years, our ancestors lived through the Great Basin that is documented by your science, contemporary science. And what we did, we were following seasonal cycles of gathering, hunting, and using the land responsibly. That relationship and those responsibilities continue today. And this is why the tribe strongly supports the rule proposed before you that Mr. Milburn spoke of. So we are requesting the modestly expanded numbers of the hunting tags available to the tribe for either ceremonial or subsistence purposes that he also spoke of. Your 2017 action granting the ceremonial tags for the mule deer, elk, pronghorn was a turning point for us. For the first time in generations, our people could hunt in our homelands without fear, without looking over our shoulders, and without feeling prevented from practicing a way of life that had been handed down to us for millennia. This new proposal builds upon a trust, the communication that our staff and staff with ODF&W and the Burns Paiute tribe has built. It reflects thoughtfully the careful work between your agency and our tribal council. It represents a balanced, responsible expansion of both the numbers of tags and the areas and where they can be used. We also value our positive working relationship with the ODFW staff, people like Philip Milburn and Davia Palmieri, who consistently listen, consult, and work with us to uphold sustainable wildlife management. In addition, we did reach out to the neighboring tribes for input, and none expressed concerns about the proposal. We know that was a highlight that was requested. For the Burns Paiute tribe, this proposal is not just administrative, it's meaningful, and it is healing. It is essential. Ceremonial and subsistence hunting provides our people with food, nutrition, cultural identity, spiritual grounding, and community continuity. It reinforces teachings passed down for thousands of years and preserves our relationship to the land and ecosystem that define who we are as the Wadadaka Band of Paiute. It also supports self-sufficiency, health, cultural survival, and access to our first foods. It benefits extend beyond us. So, supporting our tribal first foods tradition contributes to a healthier landscape, deeper partnership, and a shared recognition that healing the lands heals the people, all Oregonians, not just the Wadadaka Band of Paiutes. So, commissioners, thank you again for considering this proposal Thank you, ODF and W for working with us. It's been a great relationship. They're great partners, and we just want to continue this partnership. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And I think I can speak for the commission, for all the commission, when I say that we value this relationship we have and the work you have done for a long time with the staff. It's an important MOA, and appreciate also your comments about working with our staff. So thank you for that. Let's go to questions from the commissioners, and I think that the vice chair has her hand up. I can see that one, and we'll look for others if there are. So Vice Chair Hatfield-Hyde.
Yeah, just more than anything, just another statement, kind of like Chair Wall had. Chair Kennedy really pleased with this partnership with the Wadadaka Band and Tribe. We value these agreements and appreciate your comments about how it heals the land and the people, and it heals all the land and all the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other hands up from the commissioners? Commissioner Spellbrink. Whoops, no, I thought I saw one there. Okay, are there others?
I believe Commissioner Labhart has his hand up.
Go ahead, Commissioner Labhart, and then I think maybe Commissioner Morrison as well. So Commissioner Labhart and then Commissioner Morrison, if you actually have your hand up too.
Thank you, Chair Wall. So Chair Kennedy, I just want to also recognize the tremendous work that your tribe has done for the potential wildlife crossing structure in that portion of your tribal area. There's a lot of deer that get hit a lot in that area. And so it's a priority for me to wildlife crossing structures. And I know where it's been a little bit frustrating that we haven't got that thing up and moving faster than it has been, but I can tell you it's still on everybody's radar screen, and we'll do best we can to get a wildlife crossing structure in that area where we're having a lot of wildlife damage as a result of vehicle accidents. So thank you for your work, and keep up the relentless engagement. We'll get it done one way or another. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Morrison?
Yeah, thank you. I'll be very brief. I just wanted to say thank you to Chair Kennedy for being with us today. I know you are running a nation, so you taking time to be here to talk about this exemplifies the importance that you place on it, but just grateful for you for taking the time to be here with the commission today to talk about this. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I don't see other hands up. I do have one quick question to you, Phil, and that is, I want to make sure I understand the increase for opportunity. Are we doing a net increase in the number of tags, or are we shifting some to the Burns Paiute tribe from other areas for the increase?
Yeah, Chair Wald, members of the commission, this isn't necessarily a net increase. It doesn't have a significant impact on non-tribal hunters. These units have relatively high tag numbers for both deer and elk, and this represents a very small portion of that overall allocated harvest that could be tolerated in those units.
Thank you. That helps. Commissioners, I don't see other hands up. So
Chair Wall,
yes.
Hatfield, Vice President or Vice Chair Hatfield-Hyde has her hand up. And also, Phil, can you go ahead and stop sharing screen so we can see everybody easier?
So thank you. I actually cannot take my hand down, Michelle. I don't know why it's not letting me. I keep trying to. So if you can override me, that'd be beautiful.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments or questions, is there a motion on this one?
Chair Wald, I move to adopt the amendments to OAR 635-800-0015 as proposed by staff in attachment 3.
I'll second.
Who was the second? Sorry, I missed it.
Commissioner Moldal.
Thank you, Commissioner Moldo. It's been moved and seconded to adopt the amendments to OAR 635-800-0015 as was just read into the record. Let's do a voice vote on this one, if you will, Michelle.
Laphart,
Yes.
Spellbrink,
Yes.
Paul DeFreeze,
Yes.
Morrison,
Yes.
Modal,
Yes.
Hatfield Hyde,
Yes.
Wall.
Yes, that makes it unanimous, Michelle, and thank you all for that, and especially to you, Phil, and to you, Chair Kennedy. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. With that, we can move on.
Chair Wall.
Yes,
Chair Kennedy has her hand up. I believe she wants to say.
go ahead. Go ahead, Chair.
Thank you. This was a great win for us, and it's making me tear up now, but I just want to share a quick story that, like my son, he grew up he didn't have the ability to hunt on our homelands until you guys created that change for us in 2017. He just had his first son at the end of last year, so my grandson. But my grandson will now grow up. Will grow up in a place and never know what it's like to not have accessibility to hunt in our homeland. So for that, I truly thank you.
Thank you, Chair Kennedy. These comments from the tribes are incredibly important to us and make a big difference. So thank you. Thank
you.
Now we'll move to the next one and check back in with the Burns Paiute later. So go ahead. Let's see, we go to landowner preference formula for mule deer. And I think we have Brian Wolfer and Lee Foster for this one.
Thank you. Chair Wall, Vice Chair Hatfield Hyde, members of the commission, Director Colbert. For the record, my name is Brian Wolfer. I'm the Wildlife Division Deputy Administrator. Lee Foster is with me today, and he'll be setting up the presentation here. Lee's our Harney District Wildlife Biologist and has been on special assignment helping us develop these rules. I'm going to turn this over to him in just a minute, but I'd like to maybe start with a little bit of an introduction. For decades, mule deer populations have been experiencing a slow and steady decline across their range in North America. We've experienced that decline here in Oregon. Concern for mule deer populations, as well as concern for how hunting opportunities would be allocated if declines continued, is what led to legislative direction to establish a formula for setting mule deer landowner preference or LOP tags. Mr. Foster will talk about that a little bit more. That shared concern also drove the complete rewrite of the mule deer management plan, which this body adopted in 2024. Implementation of that plan and the associated changes in hunt structures for deer is what brings us to the need for this formula. We had our workshop last month in December. There we heard some concepts around ungulate management. Adult doe survival rates and recruitment of fawns in the populations are drivers of mule deer populations. With where we're at on our mule deer populations right now, most of our hunting's limited to bucks, except for a handful of hunts to address agricultural conflicts or some very limited youth hunting opportunities. And our level of buck harvest ensures minimal overall effects to the population. But hunting bucks, making some of these changes to hunt bucks and mule deer at the herd range scale is critical for our population modeling because harvest and hunter effort are important variables in those models. And that's driving some of these changes. In December, we also discussed that there's a lot of factors affecting mule deer, and that includes predation, nutrition, changing climate, increased disturbance from recreation, changes in forest management, and the list goes on. Those factors all combine to affect our mule deer populations, sometimes positively, sometimes negatively. And the private lands that we're talking about when we talk about the landowner preference program can provide some of those refuges from increasing recreation and can provide some very high quality habitat, and those working landscapes are very important to mule deer. Finally, I'll say that our field biologists survey our mule deer populations every year. They're collecting data that's used to update our population models for each of our herd ranges. Those results, combined with the data of hunter harvest surveys, damage trends, et cetera, guide those hunting season recommendations that we bring before you each September. And this formula for setting limited LOP numbers for mule deer is one of those components of that annual process. And so with that, I'd like to let Mr. Foster introduce himself.
Thank you.
Chair Wall, members of the commission, Director Colbert. For the record, I'm Lee Foster, Harney District Wildlife Biologist, and I'll be covering issue 1 of this agenda item today. As you've seen in the exhibit, these proposed rule changes address 2 separate topics relating to mule deer hunting in Oregon, and the bulk of our presentation today will focus on issue 1, which proposes changes to the formula used to limit mule deer landowner preference tags to bring the OARs governing the LOP program into alignment with the 2024 mule deer plan. And so when we were putting this together, I made a real hard effort to get rid of all of the acronyms, but I did keep LOP because that's pretty common parlance. So just so everybody knows, when I say LOP, I mean the landowner preference program. And the LOP program was created in 1981 and implemented by the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife in 1982. Initially, the program provided tags for either buck deer or bull elk for a landowner's property during a time when controlled hunts were becoming more prevalent. The program was created to materially recognize the importance of private lands to wildlife, much like Brian talked about, and to provide non-monetary compensation for damage caused by wildlife. Since that time, multiple legislative and rule changes have been made to this program, including allowing tags to be transferred to family members and non-family, and expanding the number of tags available and the species for which they are available. Key features of the current program include that LOP tags can only be used on property owned by the registered landowner. The number of tags each registered property is eligible for depends on acreage, increasing from 2 tags for properties greater than 40 or 160 acres, depending on hunt type and area, to 14 tags for properties greater than 160,000 acres. Tags are available for most controlled deer and elk hunts and for doe or either sex pronghorn hunts. Deer and elk tags are available to be transferred to non-family members, including all the landowners' antlerless tags, and up to 50% of their allocation of antlered tags. The last significant changes to the program were made by the legislature in 2013, which were informed by a compromise between landowner and sports groups. These changes expanded the definition of immediate family for the purpose of the LOP program, increased the share of antlered tags which could be allocated to non-family members from 33% to 50%, and required that the Fish and Wildlife Commission set a formula to limit mule deer tags in areas where populations are below management goals. In 2015, the commission adopted rules to limit 100 series, that is buck, mule deer LOP tags. These rules created a 3-tiered formula for mule deer buck hunts based on the relationship between winter population estimates and population management objectives for each wildlife management unit. Under this formula, in wildlife management units with populations greater than 80% of management objective, buck deer LOP tags were allocated according to the standard acreage table, and these units are referred to as Tier 1. In wildlife management units with populations between 60% and 80% of management objective, LOP tags were limited to 15% of controlled tags, or 5 tags, whichever is greater, with these units being referred to as Tier 2. And finally, in wildlife management units with populations less than 60% of management objective, LOP tags were limited to 10% of controlled tags, or once again, 5 tags, whichever is greater, with these units being referred to as Tier 3. Additionally, several wildlife management units and hunts were placed in Tier 1 either due to a high proportion of private land in the hunt area or due to a high amount of white-tailed deer harvest in the hunt area. And in 2025, this system resulted in approximately 3/4 of wildlife management units being designated as Tier 3, the most restrictive tier with a 10% limit on LOP tags, 7 wildlife management units were designated as Tier 2 with a 15% limit on LOP tags, and 5 wildlife management units were designated as Tier 1 with LOP tags allocated on a per acreage basis. So how did this system work out for landowners? On this map, you can see all of the wildlife management units in Eastern Oregon and the number of unsuccessful LOP applicants in each wildlife management unit. And as we discussed on the previous slide, and this is for 2025, as we discussed for the previous slide, almost 90% of wildlife management units were designated as either Tier 2 or Tier 3 with LOP tags being limited. However, as this map shows, in only 1/3 of units did the demand for any illegal weapon, regular season any illegal weapon, LOP tags exceed the limitation on those tags imposed by the formula. In many Tier 2 and Tier 3 units, landowners were able to get the full number of any legal weapon buck LOP tags they requested. We only saw landowner demand exceed the limit on LOP tags for these hunts in 16 wildlife management units, mostly confined to Southeast Oregon and the Southern Blue Mountains, where deer densities and tag numbers are typically low. And you can see on the map the distribution of unsuccessful applicants in 2025, with most hunts where demand exceeded supply having between 1 and 20 unsuccessful applicants, although that ranged up in the Grizzly unit to 51 unsuccessful applications, the most extreme case. We also typically see some unsuccessful applicants for many low tag number special time period hunts, such as muzzleloader or late season hunts. However, standard date archery hunts rarely reach LOP tag limits. And for the remainder of this presentation, we will focus on potential impacts to standard date any legal weapon hunts. I think I saw a hand go up. Would you like me to take that question now?
We can wait until you finish.
Wonderful, thank you.
I think Commissioner Halder-Freeze has a question on maybe perhaps this slide, Chair Wall.
Oh, okay.
I do just have a quick question, if that's okay. I'm just curious, trying to understand, like in those units where we had instances of unsuccessful LOP, do you know, just off the top of your head, are those mostly privately owned units where the preponderance of people applying would be more, like on a percentage scale? You know, if we switched these from actual numbers of LOP tags declined and made it into a percentage of those that applied, would it still be similar? Or you know, it's, I don't know if I'm clear what I'm asking, but if, like in Grizzly, if you had 200 people apply for LOP tag and only 2% of those didn't get it, but it's still a higher number than in a different unit where there is only 10 that applied.
Commissioner Halder-Freeze, thank you. And really, the answer to that question depends. Grizzly and Catherine Creek are both fairly high private land units where we saw a lot of landowners apply for relatively limited tags. But if you move down into Southeast Oregon, of course, I mean, those are obviously units where we have very low private land ownership rates compared to public land. And it's more of an issue that there's just low deer densities down there, low tag numbers typically. So it's kind of either end of the spectrum on your question.
Thank you.
All right. So continuing on with the presentation, in 2024, the Commission adopted a new mule deer management plan, which made several changes impacting the LOP program. Monitoring of deer populations is now conducted at the scale of scientifically delineated herd ranges, with each herd range broken into between 1 and 6 deer hunt areas for the purposes of harvest management. Rather than a single population management objective or desired population size for each herd range, the 2024 plan assesses population performance based on both population size and growth rate, using these two criteria to categorize each herd range into one of 5 concern levels: extreme, very high, high, moderate, or low concern. Due to changes in boundaries for mule deer hunts from wildlife management units to deer hunt areas, And due to the lack of a single population management objective for each herd range, the formula used to limit mule deer LOP tags must be updated to bring these two policies into alignment. Knowing that, we went through a somewhat extensive process to develop a proposal for a new formula. During this process, we had several goals in mind, including maintaining the tie between the formula and management objective, seeking stability and predictability for landowners, and simplifying the formula where possible. And while we were putting this proposal together, we reached out primarily to groups which were involved in the collaboration, which led to the 2013 legislative action and the 2015 administrative action. Those groups were Oregon Hunters Association, Backcountry Hunters Association, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Oregon Cattlemen's Association, Oregon Forest Industries, whatever the C stands for, Oregon Forest Industries Collaborative, Eastern Oregon Counties Association as well. We were also at the invitation of the South Fork Watershed Council. We spoke with that organization up around the John Day IZ area. And then we reached out to a number of individual landowners and hunters to discuss potential changes to this formula. And so with those goals and with those communications in mind, the staff proposal is for a simplified two-tiered formula rather than a three-tiered formula like the previous system. Under the old system, which was based on wide population bands in relation to a static management objective, wildlife management units rarely changed tier level since population change in mule deer tends to be gradual. However, the new population management objective and assessment system considers both population size and growth rate, which is significantly more dynamic than total population. Therefore, we expect herd ranges to change concern level relatively frequently, which under a three-tiered system could lead to frequent changes in DHA tier assignment and thus frequent changes in the allotment of landowner tags for an individual unit. We feel that the benefits landowners will receive from a simplified and stable system outweigh concerns around losing the reactivity of a third tier. So the formula staff has proposed splits deer hunt areas into one of two tier levels. Tier 1 deer hunt areas occur in herd ranges classified as moderate or low concern level, or are composed of more than 75% private land. And tags will be allocated in these hunt areas per the standard LOP acreage table. Tier 2 hunt areas occur in herd ranges classified as extreme, very high, or high concern level, and tags will be limited in these hunt areas to 15% of controlled tags for a given hunt, or 5 tags, whichever is greater. While spring population surveys and model runs will need to be conducted prior to making final assignment of hunt areas to tiers for 2026, we expect that 5 hunt areas will be classified as Tier 1 due to private land makeup, with most of the rest classified as Tier 2. We do anticipate that removing the most restrictive tier will increase available LOP tags slightly over the number available in 2025, although when considered as a proportion of controlled hunt tags, this increase will be greater. However, making direct comparisons between the two systems is challenging due to changing hunt area boundaries and because LOP application patterns under any new system are unknown. Under the previous system, on average, only approximately 2/3 of available any legal weapon buck tags were allocated annually over the last few years, but it is unclear if this will remain the case under any new system. We do anticipate that some any legal weapon and special hunts will still have more demand than available LOP tags, and we also anticipate that the spatial pattern of which hunt areas have higher demand than supply may change. Moving on to next steps, whatever formula is adopted by the commission today will need to be applied to 2026 hunts following spring surveys and population model runs. Landowners will be officially notified of the tier level assignments for the hunts they are eligible for by May 1st, 2026, so that they may make informed decisions about their controlled hunt applications prior to the deadline. Given the uncertainty surrounding the effects of any adopted formula, the department is committed to reviewing the LOP program and the mule deer formula specifically after 2 or 3 years of implementation. And with that, unless there are any questions right now, I will pass it on to Brian to cover issue 2.
Thank you, Lee. And I will make this as quick as I can. So a second issue with this exhibit is herd range name changes. You can advance the slide, Lee. When we went through the process of updating the mule deer plan and we examined all of our caller data from a couple thousand mule deer and delineated those herd ranges, we named those at the same time. We had 22 herd ranges. Unfortunately, some of the names that were chosen were the same names as some wildlife management units. And so as we got into the development of the 2026 big game regulations, we realized how confusing it was to have, for example, an Ochoco deer herd range that had different boundaries than the Ochoco Wildlife Management Unit and Ochoco elk hunts. And so we ended up coming up with unique names for deer hunt areas to help avoid that confusion with hunters as well as confusion within our staff. And those deer hunt area names, we're now asking that those be modified. The management objective tables that are in rule now reflect these new names to make it easier as we do things such as running this formula and tell landowners where the herd ranges are falling in terms of concern level, tag limits. Having that match with the deer hunt area names is important to us. And so this proposal would not change any herd range boundaries, would not change any hunt area boundaries, would not change any management objective levels, would rather just change names of some herd ranges to match the deer hunt areas and avoid that naming overlap with wildlife management units. And I think, Lee, you can advance to one last slide, and we are available to take questions now or after public testimony, whatever you would prefer.
Actually, commissioners, if we could, thank you, Brian. If we could take any immediate questions right now, and the rest of questions we could wait until after testimony. We do have 6 people signed up to testify. So are there immediate questions? And Debbie, if you could help me see if there are any hands up.
I'm not seeing any hands.
Great, then we will go to testimony, and the first 3 people are, I just have initials, M.T. Anderson, William Ray Jr., Don Gentry. So if we could start with M.T. Anderson.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. My name's M.T. Anderson. My wife and I, along with our kids, ranch in Izey, Oregon, which is located in the southwest corner of Grant County along the South Fork of the John Day River. We have ranched here for several decades, and Grant County is our home. We are involved in the community, as my wife has been a 4-H leader for years. I sit on the school board in John Day, and I also serve as the vice president of the Grant County Fair Board. We love our community and the wildlife and natural resources that thrive in our region. One particular species of wildlife that are very near and dear to me are mule deer. I have hunted in Oregon for over 35 years, and in that time, I have watched our mule deer populations go drastically downhill. They are now the lowest they have been since ODF&W started keeping track of big game population numbers. As a landowner, rancher, and steward of the land, we recognized this trend years ago and realized that we must do something about it if we want to continue to have mule deer on the landscape to hunt and enjoy. ODF&W initiated the Mule Deer Initiative back around 2010, but prior to that, we had started working on our habitat on private lands, but we weren't the only ones. Many ranches in the Izey Valley started addressing habitat concerns, and over the last 2 decades, we have spent, along with partners, millions in this valley to improve mule deer habitat. The stands of bitterbrush and browse in this 23-mile-long valley are unbelievable and arguably some of the best mule deer habitat in the West. As you all know, ODF&W has now decided to change how they manage mule deer hunting units with the creation of the new Aldrich Hunting Unit. It drastically impacts our LOP tags in this area. I do not know of any other basin in Oregon that has prioritized mule deer habitat and upland projects more so than the landowners in IZ. The thank you we are getting from ODF&W feels like a hard shot on the chin. My wife and I own land in the Silvies unit, Ochoco unit, and the Murderers Creek unit. Due to the limited availability of tags, we were able to use different units to ensure that our kids got LOP deer tags and also that my wife and I could get them as well. With the creation of the Aldrich unit, all of our ranch land is now located in one unit that is proposed to have a massive tag reduction. Lee Foster and Jeremy Thompson, but Lee, who you just heard from, is a district biologist from Harney County. He came and gave a presentation to the South Fork John Day Watershed Council in which he shared with us that if all the property that's being put into the Aldrich unit stayed the same, the unit would qualify for 1,800 deer tags. ODF&W is reducing that number to 1,100 tags for 2026. I can live with that for several reasons. One being that the public land opportunities for harvesting a deer are a fraction of what they used to be. The deer rely heavily on private land and its associated habitat. The private land is significantly better managed, and that's not a coincidence, by the way, and thus it has better feed and browse. Your opportunity to harvest a mule deer on public land in this region is nowhere near where it used to be. So the tag reduction seems warranted to me. But what does not align correctly in the proposal in front of you today is the recommendation of only 15% of the total tag allocation going to LOP tags. If you look at the harvest success rate with LOP tags in the Silvies, Ochoco, and Murderers Creek unit, it is only slightly higher than the general draw tags. Why is this? I can tell you why. We have opportunities to fill every LOP tag that we get every year. Our neighbors are in the exact same situation. It's not hard to kill a deer with an LOP tag. The difference is we have spent massive amounts of money to enhance mule deer habitat, and we don't want to shoot every buck we see. We are extremely selective in the deer that we harvest, and we try to only take mature bucks that we aren't biologists, but generally we feel are over 4 years old. I personally haven't killed a buck since 2016, and yet I have had an LOP tag most years. I could have killed many bucks every year. I choose not to because I want to see our mule deer flourish, but I love being able to hunt with my kids and my wife, and for all of us to be able to have an LOP tag in our pocket. Our situation is no different than most of the landowners in this region. No one is shooting deer to just fill a tag. They're being selective and trying to only harvest mature deer with age class. By ODF&W reducing the tag numbers by almost 40%, did you hear that? 40% in the Aldrich unit, you are penalizing landowners drastically by only allocating 15% of the tag count to the LOP program. What I think the commission and the ODF&W employees tasked with making this recommendation to you are missing is the fact that private landowners are not slaughtering deer with LOP tags. Rather, they are being responsible and selective in their harvest, and the data proves that. LOP tags could easily have a 90 to 100% harvest success, yet the data will show the numbers are only slightly higher than the general draw tag success rate. Oregon is a state that prides itself on being fair and equitable. There is absolutely nothing fair and equitable about the proposed LOP tag allocation that is in front of you today. I would strongly encourage you as a commission to reconsider the percentage of tags being allocated for deer LOP tags in 2026. Landowners have created great habitat, make responsible harvest choices, and deserve to not be penalized for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. We will go on to William Ray, Don Gentry, and then Shane Gomez. So
Chair
go
Wall?
ahead. Yes.
Chair Wall, Mr. Ray is not in the room this morning.
Thank you, Michelle. Then we'll go to Don Gentry, and you also will have 3 minutes, Mr. Gentry. Go ahead, and after that, we'll go to Shane.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity. I regret that Chair Ray isn't on. The only comment that I would like to make primarily is that we're looking forward to having direct communication with those appropriate in the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife to address our interest in co-managing treaty resources to the tribes, mule deer and other resources important to us. And we do have concerns about how the herds are managed, that has an impact on the Klamath Tribes Reserve Treaty Rights area. So recognizing this isn't really the forum to get into all the details of the numerous concerns that we have, I just wanted to just let folks know we're looking forward to coordinating with the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. After initial meeting with former Director Melcher, where we proposed moving forward, developing a co-stewardship agreement or a co-management agreement, and also with current Director Debbie Colbert acknowledging that she's interested in working with us in that. So I don't have any specific comments other than to say that we are concerned about how the herds are managed. It doesn't have a direct correlation to impacts on our reserve treaty rights area and the opportunities our tribal members have to harvest deer in elk and other resources. We're looking forward to getting into direct communication down the road to address the numerous issues that we have as we work together to manage sustainable harvest of resources that are important to the tribes and Oregon citizens. Recognizing that we have a Federal Reserve Treaty right, and from our perspective, that needs to be a priority, when it comes to considering impacts of state management on those treaty resources that the tribes have reserved through the Treaty of 1864 and affirmed by the courts. So that's primarily the comments that I wanted to make. Look forward to further discussion as we get into the numerous concerns that we have and recommendations that we have and how we can work more effectively together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gentry. And appreciate very much your work on the MOA. If you were listening to earlier comments from the commission, you heard how valuable these MOAs are to the commission as well. So thank you very much. Let's go on to Shane Gomez and then Tyler Dungannon and then Scott Hess. So Shane.
Yes, Shane Gomes, third of a fourth generation family ranch in Antelope. Thank you to Chair Wall and everybody for your time. I'm representing Oregon Cattlemen's Association. I'm second vice president currently, and also co-chair for the Wildlife Committee with Dennis Sheehy. OCA was not in favor of option 1 or 2, but this is the lesser of two evils. We would like it to get back to the original plan of the more LOP tags. It has been a great program, not just for being able to hunt, but damage control as well. There is a very serious predator problem in the state and needs to be dealt with. Ranchers and landowners provide food, nutrition, water, shelter, cover, and security, plus space for all wildlife. As a landowner, we manage for livestock, but what is a cohabitation with wildlife, they get a bonus because we're also managing for that as well. And they reap the benefits. So also need to reward landowners. Don't chastise us or any of the landowners by lowering the LOPs. If you're going to lower the LOPs, lower your general draws as well. As Lee and Brian said earlier, we're going to need at least 2 to 3 years of data for the new DHAs compared to the original wildlife management units before we have any good results. This is a serious problem and should be considered. And did I mention there's a predator problem? Yes, it's the biggest issue we have on the table. If it's not dealt with, you're not going to have any wildlife around. And as a rancher, landowners, we spend thousands and tens of thousands of dollars controlling big to little predators on our lands, and that is why we have the wildlife. We just ask that reward the landowners. You can actually do extra tags for special events, charity, disabled hunters. Reward us. If you don't have us, there will not be any wildlife on any of the public ground. So long story short, don't chastise us. We manage it and we take care of the lands for the wildlife plus our own livelihood. And I also want to thank all of you and also Lee and Brian for all their hard work, and we appreciate it from the Oregon Cattlemen's Association. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gomes, and sorry for mispronouncing your name the first time.
That's
Tyler.
fine.
Thank you. Tyler?
Thank you, Chair Wall, Commissioners, and Director Colbert. My name is Tyler Dungannon. I'm the Conservation Director for Oregon Hunters Association. In OHA, we have 12,000 members statewide, and I bring that up because OHA represents both hunters that are enrolled in the LOP program and hunters that are not. And as a result of this fact, our position on this issue is essentially neutral. We absolutely support the LOP program. We supported removing the sunset of this program. We recognize the importance of landowners and conservation over wildlife. And though through this transition, OHA wants to see no harm done to either side of this equation, no harm done to landowners or the general public. And our goal really is to find a reasonable compromise. It's a little bit uncertain, but we feel like we have that compromise here with, again, this was option 2 that wasn't really brought up during the presentation, but this was an option that we felt like might slightly increase the amount of LOP tags out there. And we're willing to support the ODFW proposed 2-tiered formula now. But we understand, again, that we're kind of shooting from the hip, so to speak, without concrete data. So there's uncertainty out there. And because of that, as just mentioned in the last testimony, we do want to review this program after 2 to 3 years of implementation of the new formulas. And it was mentioned in the materials in the agenda packet, it was mentioned by Lee earlier that the department will evaluate the effects of the formula change following 2 to 3 years of formula implementation, which we appreciate. That was our recommendation initially. But we want to make sure that the stakeholders are involved in that process as well. We don't want it confined to just the department. I don't know if that was the intent. I really don't, but I just want to be on the public record, asserting that OHA wants to be involved, and these other groups that were part of the process want to be involved and determine whether or not it's been successful, whether or not it's working. So with that, I want to thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you, Tyler. Let's go to Scott Hess next. Are you there, Scott?
Scott is in the room.
Is he muted? Can you tell, Michelle?
Looks like he's not in the room any longer.
Okay. Then let's go to, thank you all who testified and to, go ahead, Michelle.
No, go right ahead.
Okay. I think we'll go to commissioner comments and questions. Let's do the questions first, and then we can do any comments.
So Chair Wall, just a moment here. Did you see that we have one more Chris Hefferman?
I did not see that.
Yep.
Okay, then let's go to Chris, and then we'll go to questions from the commissioners. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, thank you. This is Chris Heffernan. And I'd like to start off by saying, listening to the testimonies and the workshop reviews and all the inputs, it does my heart a lot of good to know that there's good people on all sides working together, trying to come up with a positive influence. And with that, Chair Lambhart and all you good men and women in the arena and in the trenches over there in Salem, God bless you for what you do. It truly means a lot to us out here in Northeast Oregon. Like I said, my name is Chris Heffernan. We own and operate North Slope Ranches and Resources. We're here in North Powder, Oregon. All of our properties are in Union County. on two major pieces of parcels that are a couple thousand acres plus, about 3,000 acres of timberland mixed conifer that surrounds the east side of the, or part of the northeast side of the Elkhorn Wildlife Management Area and part of the north side of it, and connects to the Wallowa Whitman National Forest. That's the winter elk feeding station that ODF&W owns. 5,000 acres, borders us. We're newcomers here. We've only been here since '92, so we're going on our 34th year neighboring the state. I'd just like to say that, there's so much that's already been said, and it was going to make it easy for me, so I'll make it quick. But yeah, us landowners are really doing our part and very involved, education-wise too. Our LOP tags aren't abused. We really need some support from our federal land neighbors. That goes unsaid. We've been talking about it for years. The other thing I wanted to mention too, and I'm not accusing anybody for fault witnessing anybody, landowner or hunter, but we do a lot of our own policing, a lot of the policing of the general public. I mean, got some great state game troops, but not enough of them, and with the budget cuts and everything. But we're always looking out for what's good and fair and equitable to us landowners and the community. And I hope that people realize that and that goes back into town and people spread that word. And it's really important to us. These mule deer are huge, coveted tag in the western states and all of America. And to be compromised by all the good we've done over the years, that hurts. So we're very concerned. Looks like you got a good group together, and I praise the people that spoke before me and the people that have made this all come together for this webinar. And I just finished by saying it's not just a hunting season. It's spending the quality time with family, kids, grandkids, and sharing the good news. We live with these mule deer and all this wildlife, game and non-game species. And it's not just a hunt, it's a livelihood. So thank you, and God bless you guys for what you do.
Thank you, Mr. Heffernan. Let me just check quickly with Michelle. Is there anybody else that wanted to testify on this one?
That's everyone on my list.
Perfect, thank you.
Chair Wall, Commissioner Labhart has his hand up.
Okay, let's go there first. Commissioner Labhart.
Okay, thank you, Chair Wall. This is a question for Brian. So we all know, the strong support on the commission about landowners and their ability to provide habitat and feed for the state's wildlife animals. And so, as was said earlier on, the landowner, the LOP process is one way that recognize that. So we know that anytime you have a change in something that's fairly major, there's going to be pros and cons, there's going to be winners and losers. So Brian, my question to you specifically is the department, we conducted outreach with groups that have been actively involved in the development of this program, including the Oregon Hunters Association, which we heard from Tyler, Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, Cattlemen's Association, which we just heard from, Oregon Forest Industries Council, Eastern Oregon Counties Association, as well as affected landowners in the South Fork of John Day watershed, and members of the public had an opportunity to review the proposed change. So it sounds like Cattlemen's has some issues with it. OHA is neutral. What were the others when you worked to come up with this compromise of option 2? What were the other viewpoints? Was there general support for option 2 with the others, or what is the consensus from what you found talking to these people and the public?
Chair Wall, Commissioner Labhart, of course, when you try to find that middle ground, you're not going to have everybody happy. And so one of the things that we definitely heard is there are landowners that would prefer to have no formula at all, or a formula where that limitation is set high enough that it doesn't result in landowners not getting tags. We had some, but we also had some landowner groups that, even though that would be their preference, when it came to having a 3-tiered system with the most restrictive remaining 10% versus a 2-tiered system with the most restrictive being the 15%. They preferred that over, the 3-tiered, more restrictive. As you heard from some of the testimony today with hunter groups, there's some neutralness. We also had some feedback from hunters in opposition to going to a 2-tiered system, concerned that it could create additional harvest and reduce tags for folks drawing in the draw. And so to me, this is one of those places that not everybody loves. Some people still have concerns that it's too restrictive or not restrictive enough. But there's a fair number of people that thought this was kind of a middle ground that would be a good place to start and evaluate in a couple of years and see what we actually see for applications, success rates for landowners, and what the overall effects on harvest and tag numbers might be coming out of it.
So just a quick follow-up with that last comment. So when you said that, we'd like to give this a try for a couple of years and evaluate it, was there some consensus around that? We don't know if this is good or, where we are on the scale or not, but we'd like to try it for a couple of years and then have an evaluation, come back and make tweaks to it. What were the comments from the groups that you talked to about that in particular?
Chair Wall, Commissioner Labhart, that was very resounding, especially when we sat down with the landowner groups and the hunter groups. As you heard from Mr. Foster, there's a lot of landowner tags that aren't necessarily requested that they could request. And so when you look at that, it's really hard to figure out who's going to ask for what under this new system. And who might, like in places like Northeast Oregon, whitetail hunts aren't going to be subject to this. And so are some landowners going to choose to hunt whitetail versus mule deer? And so for us to be able to say, this is how many landowners are going to apply for tags in each of these hunts, this is how many we think will get tags and how many we won't. There was an acceptance that we can't predict that real accurately. It's going to take some time to see what landowners ask for. And so the thought was, like, we're going to have to do something. And landowners are going to have that chance to apply for tags under the deer hunt areas. But then some real concern that we would make a decision, the outcome would be not ideal and we wouldn't revisit it. And so we've made that commitment that we are going to review application patterns, see what those landowner success rates are at getting tags, see what overall harvest is and tags in the drawing will be, and give that a purposeful look here in 2 to 3 years as this kind of settles out.
Okay, thank you.
Chair Wall, Mr. Hess is now available for testimony. And then after that, Commissioner Hulda Freeze and Commissioner Morrison have hands up.
Thank you. Mr. Hess, why don't you go ahead and you will have 3 minutes as well. Whoops, you're on mute. Still on mute, yeah. Michelle, can you tell what's going on that we can't hear him?
I'm trying.
Okay, now we can hear you. That's great.
Oh,
Go ahead.
okay. I'm sorry.
That's right.
Well, Commissioners, I greatly appreciate the opportunity. My name is Scott Hess. I own a small ranch in the IZ area. It's within the new Aldrich unit, right down in very far southwestern Grant County. I want to again emphasize what both Mr. Wolfer and Mr. Foster said about the importance of private land with regard to deer habitat. I don't think there's any question that the private landowners in managing their land are providing a service to the entire state, to ODF&W, to the citizens of the state in providing good habitat for the deer herds. As it's been mentioned, we've seen an incredible decline. I think somebody said it was a slow decline. I don't describe it that way. It's a substantial decline. We've lost more than half of the deer herd since counts started. We're losing, I should mention, I'm on the board of the South Fork John Day Watershed Council. We had ODF&W individuals come and tell us that we are losing 4% of the deer herd per year. It's time to act. I could talk all about predators. That's not the point of this discussion. I want to talk about the LOP tags, because what the private landowners were doing, the good that they were doing to the habitat, the good that they were doing for the deer herds, is why the legislature initially passed the LOP program. There's simply no doubt. Another point that I wish to make, following up on what MT Anderson said, the South Fork John Day Watershed Council has administered $10 million of funds over the last 10 years to address habitat on private lands. Some of that work has been over 100,000 feet of fence has been put in. A lot of that fence along the riparian areas in order to protect those riparian areas. Juniper had been cut on over 6,000 acres. Over 200 acres of aspen grove have been protected. 19,000 pounds of seed has been placed. 9 miles of stream have been protected. Over 1,000 acres of forest has been thinned. That's within the area that the South Fork John Day Watershed Council administers. There's no doubt that the private landowners are important. The 2024 Deer Management Plan primarily blames habitat loss. That's what the 150-page report, the primary blame is on habitat loss. But the important point is it's not habitat loss on the private ground. The habitat loss is on the public lands. The private landowners are doing what they can. And the proposed, this proposed rule, it acknowledges this. It specifically acknowledges this. And what I'm looking at is the agenda item summary, attachment 1. On page 4, it talks about the 2-tier formula and the tier assignments. Tier 1, herd ranges with concern level of moderate or low. And this is the important point I want to make. It also includes, and it shows up on the